Oh, hello, and welcome to Al Dente Rigamortis. I'm Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey. E stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. And tonight we have The Last Day of October, Bookstore Horror. So, yeah, we are on the second story of the Last Day of October series by Pratt99. You can check it out at creepypasta.wiki, along with all the other stories by Pratt involving the Curtisville stuff and Ellie Lambert and her crazy little world that she's crafted through a collection of different stories. And I guess we're going to dive into this one. But first, let's give our initial recommendations. I'm going to partially recommend this one.
I'm going to not recommend this one.
I believe I'll join you with a non-recommendation for this one for now. But again, through our discussion, that may change, and I'm more than welcome to having it change. Because I rather enjoy liking things.
Yeah, I'd rather like things than not.
Yeah.
Well, let's dive in and see why we give those recommendations, and see if our recommendations change over the course of this discourse. Starting with our rundown. So again, much like the last story, I'm going to keep this pretty abbreviated because it's a lot of words. And this one's in fact cut up into chapters. So this story is about 6 chapters long, and it's pulled from. Each chapter appears to be pulled from journal entries from both a Dr. Ackern, who is a Lamia professor, and Kess, who I believe is also called Fiona by Dr. Ackern's entries in the story. More on that in my notes, honestly. But Kess, we discover, is a Gurdon girl, who is currently living in the rustic coastal town of Escard on vacation, where this story is taking place. So it's here that Fiona / Kess goes into a bookstore called The Badger and the Hare, just as a nasty rainstorm creeps over the town. And as she's looking through various antiquated books, playing with one of the shop's various cats, and basically settling in for some comfy atmosphere while waiting out the storm, that's when some spooky tomfoolery occurs, with a number of new visitors to the shop, both mundane, fantastical, and even malevolent, coming through the doors. And upon one particularly dreadful apparition's appearance and a strange, creepy radio broadcast, that's when Fiona also meets Dr. Ackern, who is in the shop hiding and watching. And this professor, or this doctor, seems to know a thing or two about that horrible thing that came in amongst the other younger customers. It turns out it may be some kind of creature or entity that has been making folks disappear over the years between the Yggdrasil Wood and the Swanwick Forest, which is kind of roughly where this town is. Always on the and it does this always on the last day of October, which it happens to be today in the story. And now this doctor wants Kess's help into hunting it down and stopping it. Kess doesn't really want to get involved in this, and even is ready to just leave the shop and leave this doctor in the situation behind. But then a green moth thing shoots into Kess's mouth and halfway down her throat, requiring somebody to give her the Heimlich maneuver to get it out. As she hacks up this thing, which is found by some other onlookers, because basically everybody kind of crowded around as she was choking on this thing. They discovered that it's some kind of green glowing poker chip sized disc, which Kess seems to recall from her past. And then the story ends with a cliffhanger like that for now. So hopefully the next story will actually pick up where this left off. Finn. So yeah, that was last day of October, Bookstore Horror. And I suppose we'll move on to Everyone tolerates the Grammar Inquisitions at this point. And guys, I have a question. It's a question that I often ask when we have this kind of situation.
Yes.
Did you guys put your notes by chapter?
Of course I
Yes.
did. Who wouldn't? What insane kind of person wouldn't lay this out in chapters?
I'm just envisioning that you are doing that, like just scrambling right now to put in chapters. Like
No, you don't know me.
I do, bud.
Joking aside, though, yes, I did actually split it into chapters.
Yeah. Mikey, did you?
Yes.
Excellent. I'm glad we were all on the same page for once, and without one of us asking the others pre-show.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Well, let's start with chapter 1 for my Grammar Inquisition.
Mhm.
Starting with this quote here: "A mind in league with not only with a cosmic power of darkness, but also that which lies at the heart of every human and near human being." So I really feel like you could remove either the first or second with. We really don't need both. So it should be like kind of a mind in league with not only a cosmic power of darkness, or a mind in league not only with a cosmic power of darkness. Like, I feel like either one would work, but you don't need both situations with there.
Yeah, you're right. When I first read that, like, it didn't bother me, but now that you're pointing at it, I'm like, yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, it's like a mind in league with not only with a cosmic. Like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one I have for chapter 1. Mikey, what do you have for chapter 1?
For chapter 1, I have. This is a true account of the loathsome horror from beyond the grave I and several others encountered that stormy evening back in October of the year of the Hound.
Is that really? Wow. Yeah. There's there are, now that I realize, like, there are actually a lot of run-on sentences in
Oh,
this
a little
story,
bit.
and like I don't bring any of them up, but like, yeah, though they're pretty noticeable actually. Now that I remember as I was
I
reading
bring
it.
all of them up.
Excellent. You guys are picking up the pace.
So, I added a comma and that to this. So, this is a true account of the loathsome horror from beyond the grave that I and several others encountered on that stormy evening back in October of the year of the Hound.
Yeah, that's a good add-on to that.
Another way that I thought of doing it is sectioning this out with a semicolon. Like, stop with the second part starts with the stormy evening that we all encountered, because it's directly referencing the previous stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then my next one here is, this is something infinitely more worse and evil. I feel like the more wasn't needed.
Yeah.
So this is something infinitely worse and evil.
Yeah, because like worse is usually like kind of like when you have like infinitely worse, like infinitely more worse is like kind of just you're just adding a filler word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the end of my chapter 1.
All right. Gamer, do you have anything with chapter 1?
I can continue on directly from that one that you just did there, because there's a second part of that same, like the sentence right after that, the more worse one, I had a problem with as well, which is, it is an otherworldly horror brought about by a warped brain hell-bent upon possible revenge. Problem being, the way I first read it is an otherworldly horror brought about by a warped brain hell bent upon possible revenge. For some reason, I put brain hell together as a thing, and I'm like, what the hell's a brain hell? It like made me pause. I'm like, is that like a certain layer of hell that is like all mind fuckery? Or is a brain hell like the spider mastermind from Doom, which is basically a huge brain on spider legs that attacks you? And then I kept reading and realized that there's a dash right after it, and then I reevaluated my choices.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
It is also I like to think that brain hell is like either a sickness like of the mind,
Ooh,
or it's the circle of hell in D&D where mind flayers end up.
there you go.
I guess the brain hell.
hmm But either way, I feel like a comma would like nullify any possibility of this happening ever again, because it'd be basically otherworldly horror brought about by a warped brain, comma, hell bent upon possible revenge.
Yeah.
That's the way I would do it personally.
Fair enough.
Now to go back to the start of this section here. So, hang on, let me see. So this whole first chapter, it's all in italics.
Oh god.
But the rest of the story isn't.
Why? Why?
Yeah, exactly. Why?
Why is it why?
At first, I thought it's because, well, the first one is subtitled with "From the Personal Log of the Doctor." So I'm like, okay, maybe just this part is the personal log. But no, the whole thing up until it switches is all part of the personal log, right?
Yeah, because that's something I actually have in my actual thoughts. Because like that was when I realized, like, it wasn't until like there's a scene that happens near the end of like the last like I think the third or the second or third chapter where it's revealed that the entire narration we've had up until this point was actually from Dr. Ackern, who was hiding in like among the shelves, like from a hiding spot, and just like comes and like has been watching Fiona this is the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, like this why is the first one italicized but like everything else is not? That's kind of odd.
I don't know, man.
Well, the reasoning is that later on there is italicized, and it's her thoughts in at the time. So that's why they used it to differentiate, because they're not saying things, they're thinking them. Like
that also yeah.
But
like at the end of
it's the same narration though in chapter 2. It's the same style.
Yeah.
But also like no, like Mikey's also getting at like in chapter 2, it's like again we find out that like so as far as it's revealed that like the previous narration was actually Dr. Ackern watching everything. But how does he also know that like what she's thinking unless he is part Lamia, so like I guess like maybe he has some kind of powers to like observe people's thoughts.
I don't know.
That's going into actual thoughts more than grammar. So
yeah,
but
I have a bit of a note on that, so we'll go into that more later. But regardless, I'm moving on.
and again, to your point, like yes, why is that whole first chapter in italics? There's no reason for it.
He's very strange. So my next one. Ever since that ghastly episode, these questions kept turning over in my mind like falling autumn leaves. What horrific force could have possessed that wretched gentry girl to come back from beyond the veil, from beyond her final resting place in the land of exile? And what was she trying to do exactly? So personally, I feel like writing it out like this, I feel like writing it out like it was dialogue would make it flow and look nicer, at least for me, instead of it just being like a block like that. Also, the first question kind of feels bloated for the purpose of exposition. So I cropped it down, and it doesn't even really feel like it affects it. So the way that I would do it is, it would say, ever since that ghastly episode, these questions kept turning over in my mind like falling autumn leaves, and then a colon, and then you go down a line, and then you go into quotes, because this is what he's thinking. I guess you could do it in italics if you want, or brackets or what have you, but regardless, the first question would probably realistically be more like, what possessed that wretched gentry girl to come back from her final resting place in the land of exile? Because like it's going from beyond the veil and then the final resting place in the land of exile. Like it's too many layers, so I just cutting one layer out just kind of made it seem flow a little better.
Yeah, and then like the next paragraph also kind of gives us an explanation about like, well, like it kind of like you're cutting out stuff like you're cutting out some of the stuff that like is not necessarily needed, because we're going to get some of that more in the next paragraph where it explains a little bit more about the world stuff. Like fairies and as well as the underworld had set firm boundaries beyond the land of living and who had passed through the Styx. So it's like that kind of pulls into what you were just saying, but like removing the words that you removed from that previous sentence for that from the paragraph, it kind of it's fine. It works in conjunction with it. So
Yeah, it doesn't change what's being told. It just makes it a little less bloated, in my opinion.
yeah, it removes some filler words again.
Yeah.
Apparently, that's going to be my word of the day is filler word.
It might be mine as well. But I'll move on. This next one is just kind of like the flow of it. Fairy, as well as the underworld, had set firm boundaries between the living and those who had passed over the Styx, forbidding further contact. However, that wretched creature had done the impossible, and through the sheer stubborn will, had even possessed a stolen decaying, half-alive corpse that otherwise would have been consigned to the maggots in oblivion. So some of that might not have been easy to notice where my problems were. It's basically just the flow of it through commas didn't seem right. Because like at the very start, it's like the fairy as well as the underworld is how it starts. Where personally I would go fairy, comma, as well as the underworld, another comma, had set firmer boundaries between the living and those who pass over the Styx. Mm-hmm. And then later on it's saying, however, that wretched creature had done the impossible, and through sheer stubborn will had even possessed. Like, it has a break there with a comma, but I don't feel it even needs one there. Because without the comma, it would just go, however, that wretched creature had done the impossible, and through sheer stubborn will, like, it flows fine without it. And then a little right after that, it says, had even possessed a stolen decaying, half-alive corpse. Like, it's stolen decaying, comma, half-alive corpse.
Well,
where all those things are descriptors. So it should be stolen, comma, decaying, comma, half-alive corpse. Right?
Yeah, because you're listing things like that.
Yeah.
Way. Yeah.
That's it for chapter 1.
On to chapter 2. So I only have one in this one. The cat continued his contented purr. Again, there's a double word that doesn't need to be in the sentence. Or like a double set of words. Like, the cat continued his content purr. Like, that's it. There's the fix.
See that one. Purr. There's 4 instances of purr. Continued. Wow, it does say that.
You just typo-eased over it, didn't you?
I guess.
Yeah.
It's chapter 2.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, how about that?
Yeah. But yeah, that's the only one I really had for chapter 2. So Mikey, B stands for evil.
The one I have, I'm looking at it, and I'm guessing it's also an actual thought. Jeez. Because the dead quiet muffled the music.
Oh, no, I know. Okay, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, that was my issue. Is the muffled, or dead quiet muffled doesn't sound right.
Really?
To me, when I read it out loud. And also, technically, dead quiet does not muffle music, it makes it louder.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, because like to me, like I read that as like the dead quiet muffled the music. Is like it's basically it's so like there's an eerie there's something. Yeah, I guess I took it more of like on a kind of a supernatural element or something, or like the oppressive quiet muffled the music, but like that's the dead quiet muffling music that doesn't tend to happen. It's like in fact, yeah, like the music is isolated when it's dead quiet.
Yeah.
It becomes as an audio file. Like
Well, like a WAV file or an MP3?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it should almost be like the dead quiet. Yeah, I don't know, like. Hang on, the dead quiet muffled the music. The distant shuffle of footsteps. the lively chatter from inside. Yeah, that's so weird. Like
It needs to be something like if she's freaking out or something, like
yeah.
her quick breathing and her rapid heartbeat muffled at the music, like because like she's focusing on that, or like
because like you understand like where she's coming from. Like it seems like the sentence is explaining like that like everything's suddenly getting like in her head, everything's getting all muffled and like she can't concentrate on everything. It's like everything's getting muted. Because you see that in like stories and in movies and stuff. Like I've seen it in like shows and movies specifically, like where like a character like suddenly realizes something from her past, and it like terrifies them, and then like everything around them suddenly just becomes all muted and muffled and like as somebody's trying to talk to them and stuff. So that's what I think the sentence is trying to say. But yeah, like the dead quiet muffled the music. Maybe it's like the dread. Like the dread quiet muffled the music because it would indicate more of like an emotional traumatic response from her.
Or like my panic muffled the music. All I could hear is blah blah blah.
Yeah, the dread panic, or the dead panic might even be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's a good catch, actually, Mikey.
Okay. And that's it for chapter 2.
Okay, gamer.
Okay. Abruptly from overhead. Let me reread that because I slowed down for a second there. Abruptly from overhead, she heard a hollow rumbling crash like furniture tumbling downstairs. So when I first read that, I'm like, up, down the stairs? I was confused basically for a moment because downstairs is normally down. Not upstairs, it's down. Because like I read it initially like downstairs is a location, not the act of something going down a flight of stairs.
Yeah.
So I see her looking up as like something is happening like beside the stair, like she's standing beside the staircase that's going down, but she's looking up to the next floor as like a box is falling down the staircase beside her.
Yeah.
Down to the lower level. I was very confused.
Yeah, fair.
But like a quick change that would fix that is down the stairs instead of saying downstairs, because downstairs is a location.
Yeah, that's something I think I've also picked up. I have a few later grammar inquisitions that like tie on this. I think there's a couple of times in the story where like the is just kind of forgotten. And I think I have a few examples of that in some of the later chapters. But yeah, like that, I think that's a common, like another common typo in the story. Or maybe not common, but like it happens more than once or twice in the story. Yeah.
So my next one could have just been a lightning flash as well as her wild imagination overreacting as usual, and then it jumps down a line, goes into italic mode. Oh, get a grip, Fiona. I mean, look around you, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes out of italics and back to the other stuff. Yeah. So my nemesis, italics, have returned. However, like this is technically fine.
Yeah.
But the way that the story's been narrated so far, with the narrator focusing on Fiona so intently, I feel like it should be worded differently, because like the narrator has been describing her like she does this, Fiona does that, but then all of a sudden it's just a whole bunch of descriptors and then immediately into dialogue and like thought dialogue.
Yeah, like
so like
maybe,
I feel like it should be something like the wild imagination overacting as usual, and then something like she rubbed her temples thinking to herself, "Oh, get a grip." Like everything else is so visually described, but this just snaps right into the thought without much of a transition.
Yeah, I mean, conversely, you could also have that descriptor after the get a grip, so that like have that whole bit, and then it's like she thought as she like rubbed her temple in frustration, kind of thing.
Yeah. Just something, because it just seems too bland on that one.
Yeah. Also, it's a quick aside, because I'm reading the sentence next line down. Why isn't that italicized? Because that's clearly a thought too. Because she's like, "Oh, get a grip, Fiona. I mean, look around you. What could be much more peaceful and safe than this quaint place?" And then it cuts down, and it's not italics. And so I guess it may be like Dr. Akron is seeing this, but like
Yeah.
again, like peaceful and safe. Like this town of white chalk cliffs and giant ammonites.
Yeah, I guess
yeah.
it's him doing it, but yeah.
Yeah,
At the time, it was narrator saying it.
Yeah, exactly. But like, it also kind of felt like it should have been like her even thinking that, like kind of like double doubting herself.
Yeah, that's true. But I'll move on.
Yeah.
However, despite her gratitude towards the friendly feline, Fiona had no intention of remaining a comfy, quote-unquote, cat chair for several hours. So I feel like the quotes should be around cat and chair completely, because she's saying that it's a comfy, quote-unquote, cat chair.
Yeah. I
which is
100%
strange.
agree. Yeah, because it's like maybe it's like, oh, it's just an Earth cat. It's not like our like because like this isn't Earth. Like as we discover, like this is somewhere.
Well, no.
This is
At the time, she didn't know that this was a standard Earth cat, so she might be like, quote unquote, cat because you're actually super intelligent. Maybe that's what it's intending, but I don't know. I feel like cat chair is something that should be quoted itself.
Yeah.
But that is it for chapter 2.
Okay. Yeah, I do agree. Like, yeah, cat chair in quotes should be better. Is better than a comfy cat chair. It's cat in quotes. But yeah, we'll move on to chapter 3. Again, I only have one of them here. Fiona had pretty much dismissed it as extreme anxiety caused by the low barometric pressure, the strange acoustical effect caused by the rows and the rows and now of towering bookshelves, as well as the unsettling canine visitors. So, that now there, caused by the rows and now of towering bookshelves, I feel actually is supposed to also be rows. So like the rows and rows of towering bookshelves. Just the way the rest of the sentence is written, it sounds like it's supposed to actually be rows again.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, I also had that one.
Okay. But that is mine for chapter 3. So, Mikey, do you have anything more?
Yes. I think I'm gonna die, or else barf all over the place.
We're talking about yourself. Like, yes, I think I'm gonna die because I have so many I have to do here. That's where you're going. Sorry.
That's what it sounds like too, yeah.
Well, that sentence is missing a period at the end.
Okay. Yeah. Gamer?
Fiona's ears pricked as she listened for the sound of footsteps, but all she could hear was the hiss of rain and wind whispering across the threshold. This is in regards to the door being open. Bringing with it the skittering of dried autumn leaves. It was raining like hell out.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
They wouldn't be dry at all.
No, they would not at all. It's like
they'd be wet as hell.
Yeah.
I mean, they were previously dried and then wettened.
Yeah.
Through the rain, but they would not just be dry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Unless they actually are, because like this is a supernaturally occurring thing that's following this creature in.
Oh, maybe. Like
so maybe
is actually like quickly is like drying out the area around it.
Yeah, so maybe this would have been a good time to have Fiona be like, like the door came open and rush of dried leaves came in. Dried leaves, it's pouring rain. What the hell is going on? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Also, kind of connective tissue time because, like, I know you and I have both been dealing with like a lot of rain lately, and like with the falling leaves in autumn. So it's just like yeah, like this also hits like more true because like for us because it's like, wait, hang on a second, like
yeah, isn't it raining out right now?
It might be.
Yeah, but yeah. And then this next one. Okay, so it says skittering of dried autumn leaves. For less than a minute, she listened carefully. So what's going on? She thought as the silence stretched into several long, uncomfortable moments. The "so what's going on" is not in quotes. It's not in brackets. It's not even italics. And yet, it's been pretty laid out at this point that thoughts are italics.
Yeah.
So this just needs to be italics. Just for consistency purposes.
Yeah.
Okay, this next one, I just kind of found the spacing of it odd. The paragraph ends with, finally she picked up the still sleeping feline and slowly rose to her numb feet. Without a warning, the door slammed shut, causing Fiona to jump and the cat suddenly bolt awake and scramble out of her grasp. And then it goes down a line to like basically start a new paragraph, a micro paragraph that says, bewilderedly, she watched as the cat barreled down the narrow aisle, finally disappearing into the mystery section. And then it goes down into dialogue of her saying, well, that was weird. So the spacing feels off for me, personally, because like I'd break it into a new paragraph when she switches gears from previously she was listening to what's happening and then she decided to get up. Like that's a shift in her focus, so I feel like that would be a good time to switch the paragraph as well, and then combine the rest of it together, of like being scared and the cat running away.
Yeah.
Also, as like a quick note, what was weird about the scene that she's referencing? Like, she got up, there was a loud noise that scared her and the cat ran away because it was scared. That's all pretty legit.
I think it was the door slamming thing is what she was commenting on, but it is pretty mild.
Considering all the other weird shit she's been seeing and knows of, I don't think the door being slammed is weird.
I've got a comment again in my actual thoughts about that. But like something that she says later on about that's kind of similar to that.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that.
Okay. Then this one here, this is when she sees the familiar woman come in that isn't someone she knows but looks a lot like her.
Yeah.
The two women stare at each other for a few minutes before the elf turned to follow her bow.
Her bow. It's
bow.
It's like a southern term for, or like a, I think actually.
Oh yeah.
Or southern, like my bow.
Yeah, into the warren of the rooms. So start the timer. Stare at someone for 3 minutes.
Oh yeah, no, there's a lot of those. There's a lot of like numbered waiting in this.
Yeah. Granted, the one that was said previously, which I have a note on, but I guess I'll say it now. It says there's the skittering of dried leaves. I'm going to say it again. And then it says, for less than a minute, she listened carefully. I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
because it's less than 60 seconds. You have a rough idea of how long that's happening. That's great.
Yeah.
And then she stares at someone for 3 minutes.
Is it funny that like every time we got like a numbered like a solid time for like I thought of you.
Of course, it's you're all about tenses. I'm all about like moments.
Yeah.
Instead of minutes.
You're all about You're all about momentary timestamps.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Certain things just kind of bug different people, you know.
Yeah, that's fair. It's like how and Mikey
technology. Technology works a certain way, and it should only work that way.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Unless the supernatural's involved, which then everything can go out the window. But
for sure.
Yeah.
But yes, quick change for that. Instead of a few minutes, say for a moment.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Or a couple of moments. A few moments, sure. Because moments is vague enough that it's not creepy. Unless you want it to be creepy. But the other person is also staring back for the same amount of time. So unless there's some magical, like, allure thing going on, some, like, stun lock animation that they're putting themselves into, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'll move on to my last one for this chapter. So she's thinking about the person in the orange raincoat that smells like ass, and says, I don't understand why a person should feel the need to douse themselves in stinky cologne / perfume and pollute the air with their scent. That's a thought.
Yeah.
So did she think the slash into her head saying cologne / perfume? Like she thought the slash?
I mean, I honestly, I'll be honest. Sometimes I think of that. I think that way too.
You say slash to yourself? I guess I have too.
Yeah, like
it seems strange though. Now that I think about it,
it seems odd, but like it does sometimes happen.
Yeah. Like you could just say cologne or perfume, or just simplify it way down so you don't have to differentiate and just say douse themselves in that stench.
Yeah, fair.
Because then it could be either. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But that's the end of my chapter 3, grammar in yellow.
Okay. On to chapter 4 then. This is where I start picking up a couple of more. So I'm going to start with this one here.
That's weird because this is the only one that I only have one of.
Yeah. And bear in mind, this first one is technically dialogue, but I still think it's wrong. On a rainy even... Oh, I got two on this one. Okay, so on a rainy even such as this, one of the 31 at of October. Okay, so I think on a rainy evening such as this, maybe period or a comma, and then one of the, or on the 30, hang on.
You okay over there?
On a rainy evening such as this, one of the 30 at of October. This sentence is all wrong.
I gotta find this one. How did I not see this? 30 at?
Yeah, because and the 30 at is wrong because it's supposed to be 31st. But the S has been accidentally typoed into as an A.
Oh yeah.
So it's actually supposed to be on the 31st of October.
On a rainy even such as this, one of the 30 at of October. So it should, I typo-neezed it to is on a rainy evening such as this one of the 31st of October.
Yeah, so there should be a comma after one and before of there. And then like you could either have even become eve or evening. Like on a rainy eve such as this one, comma, of the 31st of October. Or even you get rid of the of and just like the 31st of October.
Yep.
That it's just like ow. But I'll move on to the next one here. Well, midway through the trip, he suddenly caught whiff of this foul and nauseating odor. So I feel like this one, it just needs he suddenly caught a whiff of this foul odor, and nauseating odor.
Instead of whiff, just whiff.
He suddenly caught whiff of this. It felt a little caveman-y to me.
Yeah,
caught whiff. It sounds weird, right? When you read it, or when you say it, like he suddenly caught whiff of this foul and nauseating odor. I feel like
it almost could be passed off as like fancier speak, though.
Maybe I don't know. I still
it could go either way.
Personally, I want an A between caught and whiff.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah.
There's no downside to doing that for sure.
Yeah, and then this is this is sort of what I was talking about with the that would need to be needed. It wasn't so much of the as like there just need to be a few like of those kind of words in between certain words because again there's a little bit of caveman speech throughout the story because like either the person was writing too fast and like just forgot to add that extra word. And this is a similar example I have here. Finally, he managed to calm the horse down, and then, after thinking the matter through, blah blah blah. But yeah, I think it should be. Finally, he managed to calm the horse down.
Yeah.
And then my next one here is, I would have regarded the whole story as just too bizarre for believability. ... And that one, you just need one of those halves. You don't need both. It's like, I would have regarded the whole story. I even thought it was like, maybe it should be, I would have had regarded the story. No, it doesn't work. It's, I would have regarded the whole story. And yeah, that's the end of my Grammar Inquisition for Chapter 4. So, Mikey.
I don't have anything.
Okay. Gamer.
How dare you? Okay, I have one. Even Walter Inkpen was suspected.
It's Inkpen, actually.
Inkpen? Is it just Inkpen?
Yeah, because it's the Q Inkpen? Is basically it's a fancy way of it's a fancy last name for that, but it's basically Inkpen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Walter Bick was suspected since he was a Hallow Earth extra.
Remember, it's the Howlow or Howlow.
Sure, them, whatever, but this was proven impossible given to the poor beggar's condition. He wasn't a beggar, he was a famous author. So maybe it should be poor bugger's condition because he's dead.
Yeah, I was also thinking that too, but like I left.
He
it
ain't no
because-
beggar.
Yeah, but
He's
it's
a
kind of like,
writer and a boyfriend to the most
to a
famous woman in
starlet.
the entire universe.
You're so right. Yeah, no, yeah, 100%. It's like this beggar. It's like, yeah, it should be this bugger. Because he even
Yeah.
says like this poor bugger later, right?
Maybe, I don't know.
You read the story, right? Right?
Oh yeah, I know every single word in the whole story.
fair.
You right.
That's fair.
No, bugger does not exist in this through Control F.
Okay. I thought I heard it. Okay, yeah.
You might be just thinking beggar. You probably read that over as bugger.
Yeah, I might have, yeah.
But yeah, that's the only one I have for that chapter.
All right. Moving on to chapter 5. I only have one. And we might have just see the prime suspect in all of this. So I know it's dialogue again, but I think it should be, and we might have just seen the prime suspect in all of this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then Mikey, do you have anything for chapter 5?
Yes. Yes, I do. Okay. Okay. No, the worst part was that huge metal gate standing several miles deep within the woods, surrounded by a number of arcane stone cranes. So I feel like we have the wrong type of crane. Because this is the machine crane.
Yeah, is it? You think it means like crane is in the bird?
I think so.
That honestly makes
Uh,
more sense to me than like envisioning it having like giant stone cranes, like as in like the mechanical cranes.
Yeah.
What happened to me is later on, it's talking about
I know. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Go.
later on it's talking about like stone cranes that are like laid out as a barrier. And then like I'm like, this is wrong. I'm Googling stone crane in that spelling, and it came up with stone cairn as like the stackings of rocks.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, oh, okay, maybe this first one means that, and there's just huge stacks of rocks in that same reason as well.
Yeah, that makes more sense. I think if it was Karen's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes more sense. My other thought was that it could also be a misspelling and be arcane stone brains.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, why not?
I can also see the bird imagery. I could also see because like Swanwick and like
Yeah, I like that honestly.
Yeah, but yeah, I think Gamer might have it with Karen's. It's just like a typo, but
nice.
Unless again it's supposed to be cranes, like mechanical cranes, but like it's just kind of odd. But
yeah,
or the birds. It could be the birds. At least for the first one, it's plausible for the birds. I don't think the barrier is made out of birds. But what do I know?
Well, again, they're arcane stone cranes, so like they're statues of birds. So like,
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So my next one is a bit of caveman speak.
Oh, great.
Love it.
Yes, but supposing they don't kill it, Dr. Arkin insisted. Supposing they miss the brain or hurt, what will we do if doesn't die?
What do if doesn't die?
What's that? The final part of that? And if internal aeons, even death may die?
Yeah, hang on. It's like, and in strange eons, even death may die.
Yeah, there you go, yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's actually very relatable to the story, because again, Cats of Uthar, Lovecraft, like mentioned in this even straight up. So yeah.
Yeah. It's bad that I only truly know that quote through the South Park episode.
Yeah, a little bit, but like, hey, you know what? I'll take any kind of any exposure to Cthulhu mythos. Like, I will take it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. And my next one here. If this guy thinks I should help him wrangle some nameless terror from who knows where without proper nullifying equipment, then he should hire someone else them.
Yeah, that them. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it should be someone else then.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Or even just get rid of it then. You don't even need that. It's just like
Yeah, it's
somewhere
true.
else. Period.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. And that's in my chapter 5.
Okay. Gamer?
Okay. So at the start of chapter 5, when does the switch happen? I don't remember. It starts at 4. Never mind. So start at 5. He paused when he saw the incredulous look I was giving him. Is something the matter, Kess? Is what he says. Did she ever tell him her name? Because he basically just jump scared her. And then she's like, what the hell? And then he explains his story and then starts explaining another story, and that's it. I don't think there's any mention through the whole previous entry on how the first 3 chapters are from the Doctor's viewpoint either. Considering but he also knows Kess's history and thoughts and actions in the moment. Yeah. And like her walking outside and coming in. So he's been straight up stalking her.
I have to actually stop. Oh yeah, okay, that's true. Because I'm looking at this I'm looking at the second one. It's because this is pulled from a journal entry of Kess. As of chapter 4, there's a
yes.
So maybe in the previous entry from Kess's journal, it mentions something about that. But yeah, it's there. I don't think they actually properly introduce themselves.
No,
I think he introduces himself eventually.
No, he introduces himself right away, saying "Bonjour, mademoiselle." Blah.
Yeah, and again, this kind of goes into actual thought thing of him knowing her thoughts. So maybe that's how he knows her name, is because he read her thoughts
and knows everything she did that whole day and the reason she's there, and that she rides a scooter or whatever it was.
Yeah, because he was clearly stalking her.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, look at, can Lamias read minds? Is that ability they have? Because Lamias are an actual folkloric thing.
Oh, okay.
What powers do Lamias have? Okay, that's terrifying. The first thing is they have removable eyes.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah. Okay, this is I'm not gonna look this up right now. This is sorry.
Not important.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird how it's not explained.
Yeah.
He shows up, scares her, and then says hi. Because the first thing that she says to him is "Holy crap!"
Yeah. Oh, I have that entire honestly that whole thing in my actual thoughts, because I actually kind of really like it.
Yeah, but the weird thing is in between the two, there is stuff missing, because right after that we jump into chapter 4 and they're friends.
Yeah, well, because for some reason, again, it sort of cuts away, and now he's explaining the situation, stuff like that, from her point of view, because from her, it's pulled from her journal entries. So we don't get that part where they actually properly introduce each other, if they do, in fact. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll move on from there.
Okay. Sorry, you know, I just realized that chapter starts at Meteor Res.
Technically, yeah. Maybe that's why I'm having a problem with it.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. He's fine. I wonder, Dr. Akern. Do you say Akern or Akern?
I think it's Akern. Yeah.
Okay. I wonder, Dr. Akern began. His voice ceased as he glanced about him sharply before looking me squarely in the eye. I feel like it should be glanced about himself sharply instead of about him sharply.
Yeah.
Because about him sounds like he is glancing at someone else who is a him.
Yeah. Or about his person. Sharply.
Yeah. Just glanced about him.
Glanced about. Strange. Get rid of the him, yeah.
Yeah, I could even
but the him gives a direction. It's saying that he's looking at himself. I don't know why he looked at himself, actually. Unless he's just meant to be looking around and then he focuses on her.
Yeah.
Oh, he glanced about himself like he himself was glancing about. That's where you're getting at, Mikey?
Well, he's just glancing about.
Yeah.
Lost in thought type thing.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
You're probably right, actually.
He also kind of seems a little through this section of the story, he's also looking back over his shoulder and look, he's on the lookout for that apparition or for that thing. So
Yeah.
I think that's where it's trying to get at, is like he's like, I wonder, and then like he like looks around, just like make sure no one's looking.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot more sense, because like I was confused why he was like looking down at himself, because that didn't really do anything. But him looking around worried, that makes more sense. So yeah, removing that entirely would be nice. Just the him part.
Yeah.
And that's it for that chapter.
All right, then on to chapter 6.
We're almost done with grammar.
Yes. Of course, I have a bunch of them for chapter 6.
Of course you do.
Then I heard Dr. Ackern bellow, Heimlich maneuver! Before I was suddenly being hoisted into the air, and several abrupt squeezes were applied to my diaphragm. The moth shot out of my mouth like a little green cannonball, soaring high into the air before landing out of sight on one of the nearest top shelves.
Oh, yeah, it does say that.
And several abrupt squeezes were applied to my diaphragm.
Yeah.
And the moth shot out of my mouth. Not moth.
Yeah, I don't think she had a moth with her.
Yeah, it's like, and then the moth shot out of my moth, like, like a moth shot out of her mouth, which didn't shot out any moth.
It's like a Russian nesting doll situation.
Exactly. Or like the xenomorph mouth.
Oh yeah.
So silly.
Xenomorph.
Xenomorph. I need to draw that.
Googling xenomorph.
There's got to be a Mothman xenomorph hybrid. Oh, that looks actually like I'm just like visualizing that in my head. That looks so cool.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to my next quote here. Oh, I'm fine, I croaked, period, before another fit of coughing and gagging earned a few whacked on the back by Dr. Ackern. So I feel like it should be before long. So like that, I feel. I feel fine. Or I'm fine. I croaked. Period. That's fine. I'm fine with that.
I died. I croaked.
Yeah. Oh no, I croaked. Like to croak is like
yeah,
I
know.
And then it's like a way, like when you've got like a sore throat or like something in your mouth. It's like I'm fine. Like that's a croak.
I understand.
But like then the next thing should be like before long, comma, another fit of coughs and gagging earned a few whacks on the back from Dr. Ackern.
Yes.
Like, cause otherwise it's a little disjointed, that sentence. And has the wrong tense on a word. So welcome to my tense talk.
Yep. Always.
Yep. And then this one, I've got like I couldn't find online, but like I was curious about it for you guys, what you think. So I'll get to this. Like, don't be daft. That's werps that do the bloomin' egg injections, not moths. Honest gov. Okay, so a lot of British phrasing in this and accenting in this stretch of dialogue, like in and around this quote specifically. But is werps, so like WEREPS, werps, is that like a term for wasps?
I guess
that's like,
it was also specific in that part. I'm like, that's got to be legit.
Yeah, like
it's so specific.
But like maybe it's also even a typo, like where it should have been like wersps, like WERSPS. Like, but yeah, like werps, just like werps or werps, like it just like I guess like again, like there's a lot of like accenting in here, and like I'm fine with that, like because
yes,
I love
that's fantastic.
I love to see it, but like it's like I was trying to like I even like looked up, is werps like a folklore creature, and as far as I know, I couldn't find anything about a werps. So like maybe it's just like a slang term, or like the accented version of wasp.
Yeah, it's how the character.
I understand.
You did it. But how does it feel, Cultist?
But this was one of those times where it was like everything else is fine, but like I'm just confused by this one. So yeah, I'll move on to the last one I have here. I'll say this. So this one starts with a quotation, and does not end with a quotation at all. It's like while
the rest of the story is all in quotes.
Yeah. While the lively discussion continued, I could only stare in shock, unable to believe that this unholy relic would be finally coming back to me. So this is the very I think this is like the last paragraph, and I don't think she's saying this, so I don't think that actually needs to. Also, the paragraph before does not have it has an end quotation, so it's not like continuing dialogue or like narration by dialogue. So I just think that this front quotation, it was a typo and doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Because otherwise, like she's not saying this out loud. Like, it's like
No.
while the lively discussion continues, like, guys, we're right here. Only stare in shock. It's like, oh, she is staring in shock.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's the end of my grammar inquisition for chapter 6 and the rest of the story. So, Mikey.
I don't have any grammar for chapter 6.
Okay. Gamer.
I got a couple.
Okay.
I'm assuming you didn't get this, but I don't know how. Unless both of you typo-kneesed over this, or I'm wrong somehow. A bright green moth, at least that's what I thought it was, flew right into my mouth and straight to the back of my mouth and straight to the back of my throat. I don't like the repetitive nature of that. Because you could just say into my mouth and straight to the back of my throat, because the back of your mouth is your throat anyway. So it's describing the throat and then describes the throat.
Yeah, I think I gave it a pass, but like it did kind of seem like it just stretched on for the sake of stretching on. Like, again, the use of filler.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you are also in the right on that one. Like, it could just be like it shot into my mouth and straight to the back of my throat. To the back of my throat. Yeah, exactly. Just don't have it straight into the back of my mouth and straight into the back of my throat. It's like you don't need that.
Yeah, because like how many layers are you going to do this? It flew right into my mouth, past my lips, over top my teeth,
under my
went over my tongue.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like describing it in painful detail all the way back.
It's just like like they're trying to do the trench run.
Yeah.
The Death Star.
Wow.
It's a whole like video game. It's a whole like game sequence, just like do 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 do.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, continue.
That's fine. All right, my last one. Everyone looked up to see a trio of kobold kids peering down at us over the edge of the topmost shelf. She okay? The oldest one inquired. So, my problem here is the dialogue doesn't ring true for them, I feel. Because clearly, it should be, she okay? Kobold.
I definitely, my afterthoughts, there is a line where it's like, I take that exact scene, that exact thing. Kobold invisibility. Kobold.
Yeah, I recently started rewatching an old Flash / YouTube or whatever it was called Unforgotten Realms.
That's the other. Yeah. Sorry, continue.
It's also technically connective tissue time because we were talking about this recently.
That's in my notes. Like, weren't we talking about kobolds the other day? Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, specifically the day. Like, we were talking about it like earlier in the day as I was reading this story.
Yes, because later in the day I'm like, kobolds.
Kobolds. Also, actually, possible typo knee or possible grammar inquisition for this. Kobolds is spelled wrong.
It is.
There's an L. There's an extra L in there. I think that that could also be. There could also be other way of saying it. Because kobold is a is a general name for household spirits in German folklore. Like in actual folklore outside of D&D, like Dungeons and Dragons, where it's like where they're just like dragon people or like little draconic people or dragon goblins or rat people or dog people, depending on the type or the version edition.
It was interesting. You told me the origin of why some of them are dog-like, because I didn't know that before.
Yeah,
why don't you tell our audience?
For anybody who doesn't know, so like kobolds outside of like actual folklore are in Dungeons and Dragons, the tabletop RPG, and in the Western version of Dungeons and Dragons, like the original version of Dungeons and Dragons, they're portrayed as these short, stunted, basically like dragon goblins. Like they're reptilian. They're about the size of a child, and they are like these like little like scampy little like critters that roam around in tribes and such. When they were porting Dungeons and Dragons to the East, out to like Japan and stuff like that, and like Japan was translating it for their audiences and for their gamers. There was apparently some kind of translation issue, and so they ended up drawing them as dog people rather than dragon or like reptile people. So that's kind of where the more mammalian version of kobolds that you see in like Japanese animes and even like in like video games and stuff like that, like World of Warcraft, I wonder if like their version is more inspired by the Japanese interpretation of kobolds than the Western version.
I didn't know that the kobolds in WoW. Oh
They're-
yeah,
they're-
right. They got the
they're
beards
reptiles.
and shit.
Yeah, you no take candle. Like they're the ones.
Right.
They're the like rat people mining with a candle over their head. Their
Wow.
candles. Yeah. And that again types like kind of falls into technically those ones like those kind of kobolds are actually close kind of a mix between like traditional folkloric kobolds and Tommyknockers, which are a type of folkloric creature that were like that or it's kind of like almost like a superstition with miners. Like if you start hearing knocking while you're down in the mines, it's the Tommyknockers warning you the mine's about to collapse.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like yeah. So that's been my my explanation for the kobold. Now
Kaba.
looking on Google, just like a quick Google thing, I'm not seeing a version of the term kobold where there is a KOLBOLD.
Yeah, so it might be a typo.
Yeah.
Or it's a different race that we're unaware of, because this whole universe that is being portrayed to us is made of not just
all manner of fairy and creature. Yeah. Also, I do want to point out. So, like, again, this is kind of bleeding into actual thought. When it referred to in the first chapter, when it referred to like fairy and even the underworld, did that kind of like they like created a barrier between like the living and the dead kind of thing.
yeah.
Fairy is an actual term. Fairy is the term for the place that fairies come from, and also the name for the creatures that come from fairy. Like especially in like a lot of like folklore, when they say the land of fairy, like that's what that they actually it's the land is called fairy as well.
Oh, so it's like if instead of us being humans, we are Earth.
Yeah, or like in sci-fi novels and stuff like that, sometimes humans from Earth are called Terrans, because it's reference to our planet, which is Earth, or Terra, because like Terra is just another word for Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, or Earthlings from Earth.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, I just wanted to like bring that up. I'm probably going to bring some more stuff like that up in my actual thoughts, but
Mm-hmm.
do you have anything more for chapter 6 though, Gamer?
I forgot that was all on. Wow, that was just off of Kaba.
Kobolds, man, we love kobolds here at at El Dente Rigor Mortis and at One Less Die.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all I got.
All right. Well, then on to actual thoughts.
Nope.
Oh no! Oh no! 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 No!
Wow, that reveal. Just with a simple nope created so much fear in Cultus.
All right, I'm back.
Welcome back.
Alright.
How's it going?
Ready to accept my fate.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mikey, what do you got?
I have a conjunction junction.
Very well.
And next stop, Conjunction Junction. Doot, doot.
Chapter 1. And what was she trying to do exactly? It is an otherworldly horror brought about by a brain hell-bent upon possible revenge, a mind in league with not only with a cosmic power of darkness, but also that which lies at the heart of every human and near human being. Because of this walking blight, this creeping corruption, this secret more terrible than all the night terrors of childhood, evil legends now hang over this ancient coastal city like a shroud, as they do in the mortal towns of Curtisville, Boulderville, Arkham, Kingsport, Dunwich, Niswich, and of course, terrible Innsmouth. Chapter 2. It was a bustling seaport situated at the mouth of the River Vlar, whose waters emptied sluggishly into a bay sheltered by the high chalk cliffs. It wasn't very far from Harnam, and lay just across the river from Waldalchia's capital, Gurwalland. It was a literary Aladdin's cave. Stacks of leather and cloth-bound volumes piled haphazardly to the ceiling, warm, friendly lighting, jazz music playing on the hidden speakers, cats nestled like cushiony bookends in shelves or in the overstuffed chairs dotting one corner of the room. It was just like being in Lumhouse all over again. It could have just been a lightning flash, as well as her wild imagination overreacting as usual. It's nice to meet you. It was probably for the best, since many of the inns and hotels in Escard didn't accommodate companion animals, and Miss Tabitha barely tolerated the boarding house cats, or even being put into a cattery for 2 weeks. Chapter 3. So what's going on? But then the vision faded when she remembered that the Fennec had been dead at least 14 years now, snatched off the roof by a wild hunt never to return. And Barfaroni. It will eventually rip and devour your foulness until nothing remains but a grease spot not even the ants or feral dogs will lick up. And that hate dedication was from all the lost and lurking remnants from the wilds of beautiful northern Humboldt County. And I also didn't see a real spook, just someone in a really good costume, and a really lousy choice of personal scent. And just who exactly is this Clarissa Van Devereux? Anyway, that got so many people peeved off at her, enough to denounce her on some weird pirate radio station. It's really amazing how this storm came up all of a sudden, like it was all paranormal, which is rather a worn-out cliché when you think about it. And that was when I emerged from my shadowy hiding place. Chapter 4. So, I guess I'm not the only one here seeing and hearing things, he said finally. And as to a figure in the in a orange poncho, well, I didn't see anyone answering that description, nor did I detect any strong disagreeable order. And then, after winning at least 20 awards for her music talent and probably 1 million for her very existence, everyone in the multiverse seemed to have adored this girl. She just vanished. And long-legged beasties. Or that may have only been an illusion, and what you saw was actually closer to its real form as your brain could process. Or maybe both of us are crazy. It was so utterly bizarre like something out of one of those penny dreadfuls. So what did happen exactly? So as he was driving them back to their hotel, he could hear the couple talking and laughing away in back. It seemed terrified, trembling and sweating, with its eyes rolling white and its ears flattened tight against its head. And as for Relia Vong, she nowhere to be found. It was her, Relia Vong, and she had last appeared as solid as you, me, and you, strolling slowly along without a care in the world, and singing in that heart-throbbingly sweet voice of hers, the green hills of earth. And yet, even though my ears and eyes told me that this was Rella, my gut instinct told me, no, it's not her. So, what did you do next? But watching that thing walk past, I was suddenly struck by the intense feeling of dread and panic, so I ducked back and hid in a space somewhere below, in a space below some stairs. It must have either seen or heard me when I ducked out of sight, and it knew I was in there even though it seemed to have trouble seeing through the dark, which was rather fortunate for me. It tried to get you? But then my courage suddenly deserted me, and my only thought that remained in my mind was to get as far away from this place as quickly as possible, perhaps even from this town. But my companion didn't laugh nor cracked a smile. "It's not a ghost," he said softly. "Perhaps it's a demon or even a vampire." "But aren't vampires supposed to be invited in first?" I exclaimed. "It does not matter what you think," Dr. Ackern told me. "It happened, and I'm just glad I'm not joining Relia Vong, and God only knows how many other unfortunates who wound up part of that thing." Chapter 5. It's a wonder more people haven't gone missing. And we might have just see the prime suspect in all of this, I muttered, feeling my hair bristle on end. It was like some major cataclysm just taken place, wiping out the majority of animal life, leaving only the plants behind. And that was not the worst of it. But the most important rule of all was not to go within the cranes and not stand in front of the gate, especially during the hours of midnight and 3 a.m. And just when I was really enjoying my stay in that idyllic place of bountiful natural splendor and pastoral harmony, someone broke the rules one day. Someone who thought I was one of her bestest friends forever and always. But I wasn't, because I completely hated her guts. Chapter 6. But it quickly dissolved into coughs and wheezes. Tears began streaming from my eyes. It was so bloody huge. It had to have been a moth. Judging from my young friend's negative reaction, it was quite possibly one of the bad-tasting varieties. It was still wriggling and stuff. It's more like an emerald. It's more like one of them decorative glow-in-the-dark glass or resin stones posh folk use in landscaping their gardens and patios. It's got to be something magical and legendary, like the crystal snow globe of Rittmeister Karl, or the wondrous wishing 8-ball of Quigahog. Finn.
Wow. Thank you for that secondary rundown of the story.
I'm both surprised and not surprised at all that you went through and did all that.
Yeah.
Very diligent to the cause.
Future me, put the timestamp of when our grammar acquisition is done now.
That early? Even though, for those unaware, Mikey grabs all the sentences throughout a story that start with words that they probably shouldn't, like its, ends, or buts, because there's always better words to use. And he puts them into a story with sometimes hilarious results.
Although
this one kind of had some like weird stuff because like there wasn't too much context at some point, so it's like talking about like the girl that everyone fucking loves, but it was previously just talking about Kess, so like she is the person that everyone in the freaking world loves. Like she is the actress now.
Oh yeah, like she was your. So you also you kept saying like I mean I kept using a Urella, but like I the Y could also be silent. So with Urella Bong.
Gotcha. You're not talking to me. You're talking to Mikey.
Yes, sorry, Mikey. Yeah.
But he's not responding, so I'm responding in his stead.
Yep.
Well, he's met his quota for the day of like speaking. So
yeah, that's true. That's true.
I kid. Unless. All right. So I suppose we'll move on to actual thoughts then now. So I've got gonna start again. We're going down by chapter. So starting with chapter 1, and I'm going to bring up this quote here. Because of this walking blight, this creeping corruption, this secret more terrible than all the night terrors of childhood, evil legends now hang over this ancient coastal city like a shroud, as they do in the mortal towns of Curtisville, Boulderville, Arkham, Kingsport, Dunwich, Inniswich, and of course, terrible Innsmouth. So I just really like this line, even though it is a tad run-on. Like, just keeps going.
It's awesome enough it can get a pass.
Also, I really like the fact that like the Curtisville stories and like Curtisville are tied in some way to the Cthulhu mythos.
Mm-hmm.
What with all the other towns being call-outs, like I'm not sure about Boulderville, but Arkham, Kingsport, Dunwich, and Innsmouth. Maybe Innswich. I've never really heard of Inniswich or Inniswich or whatever, however you pronounce that, because there's actually two ways of pronouncing the witch, depending on where you are.
It also ties in the DC universe as well, because that's where Arkham is where the Batman puts the bad guys, right?
Well, that's why DC used Arkham for the Arkham Asylum, was actually inspired by Lovecraft stories.
I think you got that backwards.
No. But yeah, no. Yeah, like all those ones I mentioned though, like they're all like in the Cthulhu mythos, and like they're all in Lovecraft country. Which is like a term for like that part of New England that like Lovecraft focused on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just kind of cool that like I just like that term. Is like because of this walking blight, this creeping corruption. It's just such a cool like set of lines. Or like it's just a cool line of like the way it goes into that. So
yeah, like that series of lines is great because you're putting a lot of emphasis on it. But like when it's repeated stuff like into the mouth and then into the back of the mouth and then into the throat, like that doesn't matter because that's not a super like intense moment. Like I'm sure it's horrifying for that happening to her at that moment.
Yeah.
But like Yeah, it worked way better in this instance that you just brought up.
No,
Now.
like now that I think it was like you could make that even more horror. It's like it's shot into my mouth and into the back of my mouth and into the back of my throat. Like so it's all depends on how you read it.
Yeah, it's the tone you give it.
But that's all I got for chapter 1. So, Mikey.
I don't have any actual thoughts for chapter 1.
Okay. Gamer.
Let's see. Well, first off, I'm just going to talk about art because I don't know if you guys talk about art.
Yeah, I meant to actually start the actual thoughts with covering the art. So thank you. Yes.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Art's pretty well done.
Yeah. It's all by
throughout all of them. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all pencil work. For the most part.
I kind of like that it's like not colored.
Yeah.
Because like as soon as you put colors in, like yes, it cements those things, but also like because it's black and white, it's a little bit more believable. As soon as you start putting colors into it, you're trying to make it look more realistic. But unless you do it like perfectly with the right shading and everything, it'll look cartoony, I guess.
Also, I'll be honest.
But like when it's black and white, it's just nice and clean.
Yeah, but like I'll also be honest, the black and white, like the pencil work being like just grayscale or just like again like no color, it really also adds to the atmosphere of the story's world. Because like I look at that and that's how I'm kind of like it adds to the dismal gray like stormy weather of the story as well.
Yep, for sure.
Like, and the second one in particular, the second image that's used, like there's one, the first one's like of a dog on a little like wall, and then like in the background there's the town. The next one
might have been that he's at the side of the road and it like dips down, maybe.
Maybe that's it. I kind of saw that as being like almost like a just a guardrail or like a
yeah, it could be that as well. I was going back and forth on the two, but then I'm like, do dogs like hang out on the top of like concrete walls like that? That's more of a cat thing.
I mean, no, some dogs do like do have like the whole like that mentality of like hopping up like on top of a perch kind of thing, but
some like having a vantage point.
Yeah. And then like the second image is like of a lighthouse overlooking the town and stuff like that. I fucking love this image. It's just so cool. Like you can see the ammonite fossils in the rock around the image. And it's like it borders between mundane and fantastical to me. Like it,
which is the whole point.
Yeah, exactly. Because like this isn't Earth. This is some place in fairy, or some other dimension that's outside. That's like akin to our world, but like different, and teeming with like fantastical entities and such. So it feels like a fairy tale kind of setting. And the dreariness just kind of adds to like the sort of dark fairy tale. So, yeah.
The what is it? The fourth image? Because third image is the doctor showing up, and the fourth one is him with So
what's
her name?
That's I think that's it's supposed to be like kind of a
Urella.
Yeah, Urella Vong. Yeah. Like, I think that's supposed to be him.
Just gotta say, he looks bored as hell in that picture.
Well, see, no, I interpreted it as because like there's a scene in the story where he's like he's talking about her, and then he like looks like he talks about kind of like bittersweet or like melancholy, and that's kind of
he's just leaning on the table talking about her
and just thinking about it and like being sad a little bit. I just realized now, like actually like looking at the photo like close up, you can see Kess's hair in the back.
I just noticed that too.
Yeah, and like I love this. Like it's cool because like you get from the image that like he's like thinking about this woman who's in the background, and like at first you're like, oh, is like she actually behind him? It's like no, that's just like him thinking about her because there's like it's sort of wispy or there's kind of blurriness about her around her. So
even though it would make it way harder to draw, it would be cool if like you could still see the phantom bookcases through that on her.
Yeah,
so you can tell it's like a ghostly apparition, even though again it makes it way harder to draw.
I'm not entirely sure that either this is done all in like traditionally, or I think
it looks like it.
I think if you look at the book, if you actually get a close up of the books, that's a photograph. That's not.
Oh yeah, on that
so,
one.
I think it's actually some of it's pulled from I think it either was pulled into Photoshop, or like they cut out some like a photo and kind of smudged some stuff.
Yeah, and like layered their art over top of each other. Yeah,
and like again, we're admiring. I'm critiquing, like, not critiquing, but like I'm admiring the art. Like I'm looking at like I think it actually is a photo that they pasted onto the image because you can kind of see like the rip lines around Kess's hair, where the bookshelves meet her hair, and it almost looks like a torn page, and almost to kind of simulate like the kind of that like the hair, but also like it kind of looks like a torn photograph behind
It's
it.
true, yeah. If you look at it as negative space or whatever,
Yeah,
instead of the actual, yeah, that's cute.
yeah, it's really cool. I really like
Okay.
these this art is really cool. Just gotta say.
Okay. I personally have a beef with image 3 in regards to the store where it falls in the story.
Okay.
Because we get it where they're introduced, and at this point we don't know if
If that's Cass or if
the
that's
person is a male or female. So you get the picture before it's actually determined that it's a he.
yeah.
And looking at the picture, I assumed it was a she.
Yeah, Dr. Akron does have kind of an androgynous look to him.
Well, in the first picture of them, if you don't know the gender,
Yeah.
it can be easily be assumed that the doctor is a she.
Yeah.
It's not until you get the next image where he has much more chiseled face
and
that you realize, yeah, that's definitely a guy.
Yeah. I can understand. I can see that. Yeah.
Well, realistically, we know it's not Fiona at that point because it says like that's when I like tip my hat like at her basically.
Also, it does actually say in the little like blurb beneath it, the last day of October bookstore horror, Dr. Meldrick Gelidar Akron.
Yeah, but I don't know if that name is male or female.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I had the exact same thought process as you.
Yeah.
It's all pretty androgynous.
Yeah. I mean, that's not a bad thing, but like, yeah.
No, of course not. It's just I didn't know.
No.
Yeah. But like, yeah, where it's placed,
But,
maybe like down a little bit more or something. Yeah.
Yeah, like down a couple paragraphs further, and then we know after we know it's a guy, then reveal the picture and go, okay, now it makes sense. Not just
But, like,
I tip my hat, and then a few paragraphs later, like past the image, we find out it's a he.
Like where it is now is when she sees him with the holy crap is like right beside the picture. And it's like tipping my hat towards her. So a top-hatted person is jump scaring Fiona at this point.
Technically, he's not in the drawing. He's tipping his glasses to her, not his hat.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Well, no. After the hat tip, he adjusted his glasses.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's.
I saved it.
Yeah, you did save it. Yeah, it's okay. Save.
Yep.
Yeah.
Also, for me, on the very first image,
yeah,
I really like it because the background, it looks like legit. Like that could be an actual town, like the layout of it. It might be because it's actually a picture of it that is adjusted to look like art, or there's like reference done of actual towns and it's meticulously drawn, but it's really well done.
Yeah, the artist used a reference like of an actual town and basically just like not traced, but like may have also like freehand traced or like had it traced kind of thing. But yeah, regardless, like it's way like the town. It looks photorealistic enough that there was a reference point in reality for it.
Yes. Also, I understand that the doggo is on a road or maybe the top of a wall. But like, if you look at it just right, it looks like Doggo is a kaiju, and the buildings are just built on the incline of a hill.
Yeah. It's Clifford the Big Red Dog.
Yeah.
Just in sepia or in black and white. Yeah. Fair.
Yeah, I think that's enough on the art.
Okay.
So my first note is when they're talking about Fairy as well as the Underworld had set firm boundaries. Sorry, I was double checking to make sure it's actually my turn or not. I'm like, no, he didn't hand it off. Yeah, that's fine. Fairy as well as the Underworld had set firm boundaries between the living and those who had passed over the Styx, forbidding further contact.
Yeah.
So I like how basically the Fairy and the Underworld have set up the rules on how souls pass. Like they sat down at a table with a dude with a whiteboard and to set up the rules for how all this shit's going down, like it's a business basically.
Yeah, like
Um,
they're the keepers of the multiverse, or like of like the other the places beyond the mortal coil.
Pretty much. Or it's like sending someone to jail for a death sentence,
Yeah.
technically, like across the water on a boat. There's a 0% chance you can ever go back. It's pretty similar.
Well, the reference of the sticks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What is it?
The river Styx with the death man on the boat.
Good enough.
Yeah. I know things.
I love that description. Like, yeah, the river Styx with like the death man and the boat. The death man.
The dude that's a skeleton, and he's like, "Get on my boat, bitch. We're going." And it's like, "Yeah."
Oh, you gotta pay me two coins to get on this boat, bitch.
I need a toonie, or you ain't going.
What would they? I think there's actually a term for the coins that they need. It's like obols or something like that. Obols. That's like 2 obols, bitch.
Yeah.
The use of bitch just even makes it even funnier.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's been coming from a skeleton man.
Yeah.
But it's fine. And then we move on to. Actually, this is the quote that you brought up before, where it says like because of this walking blight, creeping corruption, and all that, right?
Yeah.
But like it goes into this like really flavorful thing, really describing it and making it all dramatic. But like for someone who literally just said, "Do not misunderstand me. This isn't some big budget Hollywood horror movie," and then it follows with that immediately. That line sure sounds like it's a line the narrator of the trailer for the movie would say.
Yeah. Because of this walking blight, this creeping corruption, this
Yeah.
more terrible than it's like coming next summer.
Yeah.
Evil legends now hang over this ancient coastal city like a shroud, as they do in the mortal towns of Curtisville. But I think what they're getting at is like it's not like a big flashy Hollywood horror thing or like an exploitive, trashy like tale of undead gore and debauchery. Like it's not going to be super gory. It's not going to be super flashy. It's a subtler horror.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just the line was very dramatic and movie-like, which was funny.
Yeah.
But that's all I got for chapter 1.
All right. Then on to chapter 2. Again, another thing where I'm just going to admire the stories like descriptors and stuff. Leafing through more pages, she noticed many sepia photos of trans-dimensional stations and whistle stops, once connecting ferry to exotic ports of call on Hualau Earth, London Prime, Istanbul, Hong Kong, Prague, and various others. Now the only Earth people that do visit were from the mortal territories and the 8 other worlds in the Yggdrasil system. Hualau Earth was now too polluted and war-scarred, too demented and decadent to be considered a safe tourist destination or even a trustworthy ally. Okay, cool. We're getting more establishment of the world lore hinted at here in this story. Love to see it. One thing I do have a question about this, though. Again, I tried to keep an open mind of keep a disconnect from like other stories that we've read in the Curtisville stuff. But like my question here is so like this actually does kind of explain where the Hualau humans come from in various other Curtisville stories. Because I'm guessing Hualau Earth is where the outsider humans from some of the other Curtisville stories are from. Like it was a parallel world, similar like a parallel Earth that was devastated, and now there's like these dimensional refugees, right? Like that or like am I just like again am I slipping into the other into my like my knowledge of the other Curtisville stories here?
But yeah, pretty much.
Okay, yeah, like it's because I remember like when we were reading some of the other Curtisville stories, like they were talking about Hualau Earth or Hualau humans or like outsider humans, like humans from other places, from other places. And so it seems like we actually now get to know a little bit more about what happened to that other place. And why there are outsider humans, like there are humans from other dimensions, like they're from this other world. And there's this whole Yggdrasil system and like multiverse thing. Also, like there's a constant reference to the multiverse, and I'm pretty sure these stories, specifically this one, and I mean even the other ones, like I dive into it even further, we're like 2011 was when the story came out, I think. Let me just do a quick double check here. Yeah, this one specifically came out in 2015, but there were like some even like earlier ones were like were pre 2015, and like I think that was actually like pre like the trend of everybody like thinking, oh, it's the multiverse and stuff like that.
Oh,
so
yeah.
like good on the story of being like kind of a like getting into that stuff before the trend. So it's gotta.
It did before it was cool.
Exactly. Well, wait, not to say that they're hipsters, but
No, of course not.
Yeah.
They did do it before it was cool.
yeah. Now there is an elephant in the room for my next one here, and I'll just dive into this one. So, what she had experienced at Lumhouse the previous year didn't make matters any better. In fact, it seemed to have added a few new anxieties. Ones of basements, underground tunnels, moonlit windows, and ghostly people in garish costumes. So this story, in the story and at the start of the story, even there's a reference to a Lumhouse incident. There's a story called "The Basement of Doom" that took place a year before this story takes place. However, it wasn't in the roster of the Last Day of October series. But I'll add it to the roster for after we've covered the Last Day of October stories.
Yeah.
We're going to have to go to that one. We're also probably going to have to cover the stories that are indirectly related, like The Doorway to Darkness and The Gorgon's Smile.
That being said, not knowing those stories, this stands on its own,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, no, I actually kind of agree because like there's enough context given.
Yeah, because as soon as it brings it up, it very briefly talks about it as well.
Yeah, it explains like basically like what she had a previous incident at this Lumhouse that has made her afraid of basements and tunnels and ghostly people with garish costumes. Like, okay, that's fair enough, but that's like really all we need. Like, we don't need to know too much more, but we could in another story.
Yep.
But yeah. So like, yeah, the story does do well with like giving us context to something and not having us like, well, you need to read this other story if to get the whole experience. It's like, oh, here's the suggestion of it.
Yes.
And then my next one here, despite their lack of complex thinking skills, the Midgard Federal Republic, composing of multiverse governments, rescued as many Earth cats as possible, as well as many other animals before the barbaric Hualau species destroyed the planet entirely. I'm sorry. This is going to be a running. That's going to be a running reaction to myself in the story. Is like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Again, I think this is a separate Earth, like Hualau Earth. It's also like used like URETH, like it's the phonetic Earth.
Well, only in that one instance.
In that one instance,
because when she's talking about Earth cats, it's standard.
It goes back to standard Earth. Yeah, because like I think this, but I also think this is I believe, MM Pratt, if you ever listen to this, you can correct me on this, please. I would like to know. I think that the Earth that these Earth cats are coming from is a separate Earth to that of the Curtisville stuff. Like again, it's the Hualau Earth. So it's like another Earth, like a parallel to the one that is in the focus of these stories. So yeah, like I guess like basically again a bunch of humans from a parallel world evacuated into the dimensions, or into like these fairy lands and into these other like places, and are now just kind of like refugees from their ruined world and such.
So are we talking Catscape here?
No, God, I hope not. I think that's even worse than Dogscape, if I'm being honest. Because like,
Cats don't give a fuck.
Yeah, exactly. Well, cats are like straight up sassy. Like, do you really want a sassy a sassy like landscape of flesh?
Maybe Sassland.
Yeah, it'd just be like, yeah, it's just not gonna be a fun time. Like, Dogscape was brutal enough, but like,
Yeah,
I really don't want the Catscape.
Was Dogscape its own thing, or was that part of SCP or something like that? I don't remember.
Dogscape was its own thing, man.
Hell yeah.
which is amazing, but like, yeah. So I also like, again, diving into this like stuff like the Midgard Federal Republic and like these multiversal governments, like, and like the fairy, the beings of fairy, like taking in Earth, like refugees from like a parallel Earth and stuff like that. And like, again, all the stuff that we always see in these games, in these stories, like, and later in this story, we get like again, she's in this little bookshop in this small coastal town, and there's kobold kids, and there's like there's elven teens, and like regular, and who allow humans and like living among some of that. And again, like there's Dr. Ackern is a Lamia, which is like kind of like a snake vampire person. Hess is this cat person, this feline-esque Gurdon species. And they're all like they're in this cozy little bookstore with like but then there's this horror thing that's creeping in and some of that. I really dig it, and it's not.
Of course, it's Shadowrun.
Well, it's Shadowrun, but it's also not.
Sorry, Mikey.
Sorry, Mikey. But it's also not unlike my own ideas for stuff in D&D and tabletop games like that we run on One Less Die, our sister podcast. Like it feels very Dat World to me. Like for anybody who's listened to our Dat World Pathfinder campaign, like I think that's one of the reasons I really have gravitated toward the Curtis Phil stories and the M.M. Pratt stories in general. Is just it's it's got my vibe, my mood for like fantasy with a just like a pinch of like mundane, but also just like this very like broad smattering of folklore and pop culture mixed together.
It's like modern fun fantasy horror.
Exactly, and that's my mood. I want that.
Yeah,
so much. So yeah, I think I'm finally I'm coming to realization of why exactly I've become quite fond of these stories that have been written by M.M. Pratt. So, but that is my stuff for chapter 2. Mikey,
I picked in with my chapter 2 stuff, so we're good.
Okay, Gamer.
Okay, this is in regards to the town of Escard, right? Yeah. Like it's just starting to describe it. It says it was a bustling seaport situated at the mouth of the River Vlar. Blah 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 blah. Yeah. I'm like, it was? Did it disappear? Where did Escar go?
Oh God! I really hope that honestly that feels like it should be in the story. Honestly, as like a gag, because like I'm not sure if you were actually being serious. Like where to go and stuff like that. Like it was there. I think
it's mainly a joke.
Okay, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Obviously, it was like formerly a bustling town. Now it's more of like kind of it's become quieter as like business has gone.
Yeah, it's a sleepier town now, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But realistically,
that's so fucking good. God damn it! I'm not even mad.
I'm sorry, I had to do it. Yeah. That's a first. You're always mad.
I'm always mad at your dad jokes, but like honestly, that's a good one. God damn.
Yeah, I'll do a couple of bows there. There we go. Yeah. But realistically, though, when I read that at the start, I'm like, okay, are the events of this going to change the way that the town is? Like, is it going to be a ghost town by the end of this?
I mean, yeah, true.
That's what I thought based on that.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then we get into the bookstore, and it says, as she moved down the main hallway, one of the shop cats followed, as if to keep her from shoplifting. The cat put its paw on her ankle, asking for attention. Fiona responded, "Oh, what's your name?" bending down to check its collar. Shocking grasp? As 2d8 lightning damage went through her system, from completing the vocal component to the awakened cat's security guard spell. She collapsed to the ground, and a book fell out of her purse, which proceeded to sprout its legs again and scurry away, an unknowing stowaway, to escape the store.
Oh my God, that's wow. That is, I'm stealing that for a game. I'm stealing that for one of our fantasy games, man.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, oh my God.
He can't do the vocal component. He can't talk.
Oh, that's awesome. That's just.
I can't wait to meet a cat named Fireball.
Oh no, it can't be Fireball. It'll like burn the store down.
Yeah, exactly.
No. Oh, what's your name? Sleep? Huh.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Or what's your name? Entangle. Ah!
There's so many horrible things that can happen. Lightning bolt.
Oh, or even. Oh, what's your name? Dimdor? It just vanished.
Yeah.
You get like teleported away to like a cell. Oh God, there's so many. That is such a good D&D like thing to throw into a game. Because like
You
again,
wouldn't see that coming ever.
no, not
Like,
at
how
all.
could you?
Because again, like cats in bookstores, like just roaming around, like bodega cats. I think is actually a term that they is for like cats that live in that like roam around in shops and stuff like that. Like that's such a commonplace thing, especially in like a fantasy setting. Like, but it would make so much sense in a magical realism style kind of thing where like. Of course, the owner's gonna like add like a spell code, like give its cat a spell code for like shoplifters.
Yeah, of course.
So good.
Most adorable security guard ever.
Yeah.
But speaking of the security guard, who is adorable, she's like talking to the cat a little bit, and then goes, "Well, that's great," Fiona muttered, as the cat batted one of her floppy sleeves with one of his paws. "Out of all the cats in this place, I get one who's a simpleton. I must be losing my mind here. I'm complaining to an ordinary non-fairy feline." As soon as I read that, I'm like, wow, rude. And in just one line, I dislike Fiona now. The cat is being such a nice cat right now, not scratching or biting or being a troublemaker or anything, just being the bestest boy. And she's like, simpleton.
Well, you know what? She's just falling into her own feline-like traits because she is also a Gurdon, which are a very feline-esque humanoid species. So
yeah,
as we've discussed,
so it's like you're a lesser version of me.
Yeah, exactly. It's like how cats are sassy to one another and stuff like that. And
it's like when we go to the zoo and we're like, simpleton monkeys.
You simple ape.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that's all I got for chapter 2.
Okay. Yeah. On to chapter 3 then.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Once her mind cleared and her heart resumed its normal beat, Fiona decided she had just encountered some young Fuka who decided to just scare the living crap out of her for their own twisted Halloween amusement. So I had to look this up because like Fuka, that's got to be some kind of fairy creature. So it's actually
just a rude Fuka to that cat. So
yeah, get the Fuka out of here.
Yeah.
But yeah, Fuka is another word or another name for puka or pucks, which are a type of Celtic coastal English spirit or goblin that can shapeshift. So yeah, that checks out.
Sure.
And I'd actually heard, again, I've heard of pucks, and I'd actually heard of puka from Vossen and stuff like that. So it's cool that there's like, again, like I love how there's just like different like names depending on the region you're in for like various like creatures of folklore and fairy. So
back in the day, people weren't like, oh, what the hell is this? I'm going to post a picture of this on Reddit. What's this, everybody? Oh, okay, we can all say it's the same thing. Great.
Yeah, like there was like oh, that there's the Nisse in Scandinavia, but the Nisse are basically just gnomes in like German folklore, and then like gnomes are just domovoi in Russia. Like it's like things like that. There's different names for different creatures across the world.
Yeah, which I dig.
Yeah.
That I'm fine with, but the English language having multiple words for the same thing, that shit sucks.
English language can go to hell. It can go to hell, and it
can hell yeah.
I'll move on to the next thing I have here. The Fennec, she never mentioned a name, was the first one to show the Gurdon the utmost kindness and sympathy during her first difficult times on the island, when Fiona lost her spirit ally. Okay, so we now know that Fiona, or Kess, as we find out later, is a Gurdon. And it's also an interesting thing that came to mind. It was also an interesting thing actually that came to mind as I was reading through the story. And like, again, we get the description again of Gurdon, of having like kind of like a orangey kind of fur, cat-like features, like her ears kind of like, I kind of saw her ears as being kind of a little like cat-like perky ears. Because
is it not like a Neko situation with like the ears on the top of the head?
Well, that's kind of how I kind of saw it. Is like kind of like that kind of thing. Is like it's sort of like a Neko from anime and stuff like that. And
question though, is it double ears or like do they have human ears as well?
God, I think it's supposed to be like just like a one set of ears. Like they're regular. Their ears are just cat-like. But then this is also the second time I think third time that we've seen a Gurdon with paler hair color, like blonde and stuff like that, or like whitish and stuff like that. And so it had sort of actually reminded me of a cat people race from anime, the Catarl specifically from Outlaw Star, because like the Catarl are these like this imperial cat race or like cat people race that have like kind of tanned furred skin and like very cat-like features, and almost all of them have like light hair colors. So I just thought it just came to mind as we were I was getting more Gurdon descriptions in this story. I was like, you know what, they really are starting to remind me of just like the Catarl.
Race is annoying to hear, just because like the repetitiveness of it.
Yeah. But I'll move on to the next thing I have here. Fiona stood riveted in horror and dread by unholy garble. Here's a grammar question. By the unholy garble of howls and shrieks, ripping from walled speakers. Alone, each inhuman voice would have raised the hairs on the back of her neck. Together, they were absolutely unbearable. After several more excruciating minutes, the sound abruptly cut off to a ruckus DJ voice. All right, this is Pete the Pirate Drog, KLICH's late great top undead dude, speaking to all you quick and lively folk from within the vastly deep of Davy Jones' locker. And that hate dedication was from all the lost and lurking revenants from the wilds of beautiful northern Humboldt County. Sorry, I have to do a radio voice for that.
Oh, bro! As soon as I read that line, I heard it in your radio voice.
All right, which is just a Ross Payton RPPR voice.
Yeah.
This is Pete the Pirate Drog. Also, like at first I was like Klitches, but it's like no, it's a radio show, so it's like KLICH.
Yeah.
The Klitch or K-Lich. But yeah, also, so as reading this again, like we got a reference to Humboldt County, and we know that Curtisville, from the earlier stories that we've read, is actually in Humboldt County, California. So there's another connection, I guess, to those stories.
Yep.
And then also, I just again just adding on to my love of these stories and like being this like magical realism element of just like a radio DJ who's or a pirate radio DJ who's an actual like undead pirate named Pete. And, all right, and that hate dedication. Like,
yeah, I love that too.
I just love that, like revenants and like ghosts of murdered people are just like. They don't have shout outs on radio stations. They have hate dedications.
They just send in their lines, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if he like mundanely records them and like makes a mix of it, or if it's like all supernaturally done.
I feel like it's all supernaturally done.
It's kind of way sillier though if he's actually recording this shit on tape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make a cacophonous soundtrack. Yeah. But I'll move on to the next thing I have here. This is actually what I was referencing when we first get Dr. Ackern show up. It's like next thing you know, there's some Vincent Price or Lon Chaney guy going to turn up dressed as a mad scientist or Jack the Ripper, which probably isn't really a bad thing since they probably have more sense compared to the dingus who walked in here earlier smelling like a cheap perfume parlor. And that was when
I love the word dingus, by the way.
Dingus. Yeah.
Such a good word.
And that was when I emerged from my shadowy hiding place. Grinning broadly, I tipped my top hat as her widening golden eyes took in my long frock jacket with velvet shirt, cravat, and red sunglasses. Bonjour, mademoiselle. Rather unusual weather we're having, I began. Allow me to introduce myself. Holy crap, she interrupted suddenly. I raised my eyebrow. I beg your pardon? I was right, she blurted out at last. Oh, God. It's like being in one of those cheesy Hammer horror films. Well, there goes the last shred of normality of my perfect vacation. And to that, I was just like, as soon as that was done, I was like, womp womp. Like I just visioned that sound. like I was just like, also wait, so this whole chapter was actually being narrated in first person by this creeper hiding and observing Fiona, and apparently also like looking into her head and like getting her thoughts and such.
Yeah, that's the creepiest part of the whole story, honestly.
Yeah, and like I was like about to like raise my fingers, like that makes no. You know what? I actually really like it.
I'm sorry.
You
don't like that happening to someone?
No, but like, I like in terms of like the actual like how the story like suddenly presents itself. That like, oh no, this is actually still in his journals, in Dr. Akron's journal. Like this wasn't a third person, like an omniscient narrator. This was actually you were actually reading somebody's actual like documented point of view. And it was like that's actually it just adds like to the quirkiness and the creativeness of these chapters. Of like, or even like kind of speaks of the quirkiness and creativeness of or quirkiness of Dr. Akron's character. Despite also being, and also gives an element of creepiness because like, why were you like stalking into her head?
Still don't know if he did or not, though.
It's sort of left in the air of like, is that an ability of his? Because like all we have to go on is the writing, but
yeah,
it does kind of seem like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just also like the end, how this entry ends. Is just like, bonjour, mademoiselle. Allow me to introduce myself. Holy crap! I beg your pardon. Oh god, this is like a bad cheesy horror movie. Fuck! I thought it was the last shred of normality in my vacation. It's just like I'm right here. I'm standing right here, madam. Yeah. So I just like it came off like kind of like whimsically creepy.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the end of my notes for chapter 3. So, Mikey.
Yeah. My only issue at the end of chapter 3 is that it's a good spot to mention that the doctor is a guy for the art.
Yeah.
So that's all I had. So that's my end of my chapter 3 notes.
Mm-hmm. I guess for yours it could be like, oh god, now we got this creepy dude that showed up like just out of the shadows. This is like a cheesy hammer horror film. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, basically, as soon as she said that, so I'm like, okay, so it's cultist. Like, I feel like that's something you would straight up say as well.
Dare you? You're probably right.
Yeah, I'm absolutely right.
But
so one part here, like the radio gets taken over with the hate dedication thing, and she's like freaking out about it.
Yeah.
But like, it was said that there's other people in the bookstore, but like, are they not reacting to it?
Yeah, that there definitely could have been some clarification, because it also says that like in the next chapter we do kind of get a reference point of like that the doctor also heard that. So like,
yeah.
So maybe was it just them that heard it? Like maybe that could have been something clarified.
It is explained that it actually was on the radio because Halloween and such.
Yeah. But
still, like, there's other people in the store. Seeing them question what's going on would also help Fiona's sanity a little bit here, that she's not alone in this.
Yeah. No,
yes, she actually heard the words when the doctor couldn't. He was just hearing static and shit. But still, you hear that come on the radio, everyone's going to be like, what the hell's going on? Whether it's just random weird static all of a sudden, or the voices of the damned. Like,
yeah.
I just feel like there should be more interaction with the other people there, because they only really show up at the end.
Well, they show up at the beginning when they come in, and then they show up at the end when she's having it needs the Heimlich maneuver, and then everybody's like kind of like watching her. So like suddenly they are present and aware of the situation.
That's what I meant. Sure, they showed up earlier, but they were only really in the story at the end when everyone's actually around her talking and everyone's actually discussing things like they're all actual characters.
Yeah.
Where they could have been referenced a little earlier at the radio situation.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then the only other note I have is just I like the narrator twist that happened.
A little creepy.
I feel like it
really creative.
But the creepiness could be expanded on a lot more.
Yeah.
In regards to like, how do you know my name and stuff like that, because it wasn't said that that introduction was done.
Yeah.
Also, like, who's technically is there another character that we don't know about that's actually posting all this stuff online as well? Like, is there an overarching character that's sharing the information?
I don't know. I think maybe this is Dr. Akron posting it. Maybe. Again, I think on that meta level, I don't think this is actually supposed to be like supposed to be a reference to that. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. That's all for chapter 3. All
right, on to chapter 4 then. So literally just the start of this chapter 4, we get from the journal entry of Kess Allenthal. And I was like, but and then we get a little bit more of like learning that like this is actually Kess now talking and with Dr. Akron. And I was like, but wait. And then we get this line here. Nervously, I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see that orange hooded figure or those skinwalker Fuka things standing right behind me, ready to strike out with enormous dagger-like teeth and claws, or latch on to my head with gross squiddy tentacles. So that the reason I reference this is because it references what happened previously in the story when it was Fiona that was referenced in the previous chapters. But so I honestly didn't have this in my notes, but when I read the beginning again, it says a girl came into town. I'll call her Fiona. And it's just like, so like I guess he just gave her a random name in his entries. And then it's not until now that we're into a journal entry from Kess's journal that we're confirming that Fiona is in fact Kess. Mm-hmm. Also, Kess is the character from the Ellie Lambert story that we covered, I think, a couple of weeks ago. I don't think you were here for that one, Gamer. But that was the one where, like, that's actually a tie. The Ellie Lambert story that we read is supposed to be sort of an earlier version of what we're going to read in a couple of weeks, the Short Hogger story. So, like,
pretty sure Kess was also in Summer Break.
Yeah, so Kess was as we found out in Summer Break 2017, the narrator of the wraparound plot was probably Kess as well. Mm-hmm. Though she was never named in that one. So I again, we're starting to kind of like work our way up to basically this. I think we're starting to work our way up to the point in the plot when we get to Short Hoggers, where like this is all happening before the events of like what happened to Kess with the when she put down that thing in Ellie Lambert.
Yeah. Well, I feel that the whole Kess Fiona scenario muddies the water for this story.
I also 100% agree.
Because like when it switched over, I was like, wait, is this still Fiona? Like there's no
it's the same
clear answer, but you just have to assume it is.
Yeah, because like what has happened, what Kess references is exactly what happened to Fiona, like in the previous chapter. So it's got to be that, and again, like Dr. Akron for some reason decided to name her Fiona, despite the fact that like he knows her name in this chapter.
Well, because when he was originally writing his first entry, he was like in the freaking alleyway watching her walk around.
Yeah, he was actually like jotting this down in his journal in real time while he was like in the shadows. But why do I always feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone and I always feel like somebody's watching me?
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Because like that song lyric actually makes more sense. Because again, like feels like you're in the Twilight Zone, and I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone every time I jump into a Curtisville M.M. Pratt story, just because of all the surreal like kind of fantastical elements. But yeah, so I'll move on to the next thing I have here.
Okay.
2 decades ago, Urella Vong, otherwise known as the Venus of New Averone, because I don't know how to pronounce that word.
Good enough.
New Averone had been the songstress supreme of 9 worlds. With her sultry beauty and richly melodious voice, this fairy equivalent of Mariah Carey had charmed and captured the hearts of every audience from New Amsterdam to the far-flung outposts of the outlying rim planets. once again, I'm sorry, planets. Then again, this setting deals with a lot of like realities and different dimensions. So sure, planets.
Why not?
It just got like a bit more sci-fi than I was expecting, honestly.
Yeah.
Like with the use of like different planet, like from like the outer rim planets or the outlying rim planets. So like I guess the outlying rim planets could also still be within the solar system. Like I guess maybe in this setting, perhaps the sol system, like our solar system, is actually known as the Yggdrasil system in fairy, like to the fairy folk and such.
Could be.
Because it is like Yggdrasil is the world tree, and so like basically our whole world is basically our solar system. Maybe again, we just have the stories to go by, unless the author decides to help clarify things.
Yes,
please. But I'll move on to the next thing I have. I felt my flesh beginning to creep while my mouth had suddenly become dry as sandpaper. Had I heard this story without experiencing all the crazy stuff that evening, I might have arched an eyebrow and frowned a skeptical frown. Why skeptical, though? You live in a world teeming with magical realism. Like, why is this such a stretch?
Yeah, I don't get that.
That's something that I think you brought up earlier. Is like, why is she like reacting so strangely to this? It's like you live in the worlds of fairy. Like,
yeah,
it should not.
She said it was weird when a scary noise scared a cat away.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
This is fine.
Yeah, this is fine. Like this is. Yeah, I don't really believe like revenants, ghostly like apparitions of a diva from like 2 decades ago. I can't believe that. I'm sorry. Oh, hi, George. As like a giant troll walks by, it's like, hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, it's just like, whatever, like, it's something I think you brought up a couple times, like, in some of our games and stuff, too, is like, why would I be scared of this? Why would I be afraid of this? We live in a world that's super fantastical. Like, this is the everyday norm. I get it. It kind of blends into that magical realism. Like, again, if it's something like the actions are horrendous, or if it's like something like truly otherworldly, like, and it's like their very malignant presence like causes the fear and stuff, or the is not to be believed, or if it's like a known thing that like, oh, this can't happen, like legend, like it's just a legend, like that kind of stuff I can believe, like why somebody would be skeptical. But it just seems really odd that like this person would be like kind of skeptical about like this situation, even without the weirdness that they've experienced previously that evening, because you live in a world where this kind of stuff happens. But I guess it could also be like what you said it in the past, gamer. Like it might not always happen. Like yes, there's fantastical races and peoples and stuff like that, but some of the other stuff may not actually be happening to everybody. So it's like not everybody's in the know. I
don't know. It's hard to know.
Yeah. Magical realism. It's a double-edged sword, I suppose.
It really is.
But that's the end of my notes for chapter 4. Mikey.
Okay. So there's a section here where it goes on about how he saw the gorilla Vong. And so Dr. Ackern looked shocked at my confused response, then realization set in. Oh, well, she was way before your time. His gaze grew distant as he started to reminisce about when he was just an awkward, angst and acne-ridden teen growing up in the 80s. So the next part isn't dialogue. So he's thinking it, then all of a sudden when we get to the end, we're talking about the girl just vanished, and then just vanished, I said as soon as the doctor finished his story. So it seems like Chess has mind-reading powers as well.
I actually think that like, so the way, I think it's more of a problem of like how the story was written in that part, because it's like, I think what happened was like he was telling her the story, but the way the story writes it, it was like more of like he was reminiscing. Like it was more of like his recall.
Vocally doing it.
But we didn't. It didn't signify that he was also telling her what happened. Like he wasn't all. She wasn't filling. He wasn't filling her in on the situation, but he was. Hence why, like,
Mhm.
We
it's
get a-
verified about that. Yeah.
We get a quote in the reminiscent where, oh, by the way, for all you curious humans reading this here story, like he's breaking the fourth
No,
wall.
100%. Yeah. I also was very surprised by that. I was like, okay. Also, this is not his journal entry. This is
What?
So like I kind of get what you're saying. Is like, did he just like did she write that down like as something he said? Like he just like looked past her and she like, what who are you looking at? They're like looking at us, the reader.
That's the story.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, it's kind of, again, the story, the setting is very like surreal sometimes. So he's actually a cartoon character. This is actually set in the Bonkers universe.
Hell yeah.
Oh god, I love Bonkers,
Totally nuts.
which is technically set in the Who Framed Roger Rabbit universe. But
Is it actually?
yeah, yeah, like that's actually like where it was kind of pulled for, like the inspiration for Bonkers is actually pulled from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Because
Nice.
it's the policing agency between Toontown and the real world. Anyway, we go into a whole diatribe about Toontown being a really cool like exclusion zone from like a dimensional bleed. But I will that's a whole episode of like Plot Growers or something.
Yeah. All right. So my next actual thought is in regards to the mention of the thing in the tea shop.
Yeah.
Which is why they can't go to the tea shop to sit down and have some tea. And
in the tea shop because it's sorry.
Yeah. Well, they're in the bookstore.
Yeah, but the bookstore isn't the bookstore also a tea shop?
It is. It's both.
Yeah, so it's like
Yeah.
So
It has an extension, a section where
Okay.
you drink tea and
Yeah.
a bookstore.
That explains. Yeah, there's like there's an entryway between the tea shop and the bookstore. Gotcha.
Because they don't want people drinking tea and spilling it on books.
Yeah, that's probably why there's also like like a loungy area as well too. So yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, at that point, I was things like, well, what are they talking about? And the only thing that came to mind was the creature or the person that looked like Fiona's old friend. Because that was the only thing that was given enough time in the light to be like, oh, well, that's weird. They look exactly like my friend
Yeah.
who died.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, also, they've been like seeing and hearing different stuff. So for all we know, Dr. Akron was seeing some freaking Cthulhu-ish monster over there that no one else is seeing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because like,
Yeah.
does Fiona in the earlier chapters, does she sees an apparition or like the strange? Yeah, she sees a strange like individual with like an orange poncho,
Yeah.
like drift
Yeah.
into the shop after all the other customers, right? So
Mhm.
like, I think that's what they're
Yeah.
referencing. But I guess like maybe Dr. Akron saw what its actual face was, or
Well, no, he specifically said, I did not see anyone that looks like that or anyone that had that smell.
oh, so maybe like, so they both saw something that like, but like to them, like you were saying earlier, like
What the way I'm seeing it, I might be wrong, but everyone in this bookstore is experiencing their own personal hell. Basically.
broad
Well-
stroke, but yeah, but like that's kind of what I was thinking you're getting at, and I think I kind of believe that. I think you're onto something in that like she saw this orange thing, this thing in an orange poncho and smelly odor, and that like gave her the heebie-jeebies. Akron
Mhm.
saw didn't see that, but saw like what he believed might be an apparition of Urella Vong, perhaps, or something akin
Yeah.
to it. So like yeah, like they both saw the same thing, but but they didn't see the same thing, right? Like they both
It's like the
saw-
glamour is set up specifically for different people or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
There's a personalized personalized perception.
Yeah,
of-
a glamour that makes you look like a person who's dead from the person's past.
But wasn't that But wait, hang on. Oh, but wait, hang on, because like,
fuck, bud.
but like, when she saw when Fiona / Kess, I'm just gonna call her Kess. When Kess saw the what she thought was that old Fennec friend of hers, wasn't that the elf girl that she sees later? That wasn't the orange poncho thing, right?
No, yeah, they're different ones actually.
Yeah, unfortunately, that kind of breaks that. Unfortunately, but like
that would have been super cool though.
That would have been really good. Like yeah, if the face of the thing that was wearing the poncho was the Fennec girl rather than the elf girl.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that would have been so good. It was almost good. that was I didn't actually mean it that way, but I was like that's almost like that's honestly what it should have been. Was like that scenario where like. Yeah, like its face was something. It was somebody that Kess knew who was dead, just like the thing that Akron saw was somebody who was dead, but that he was aware of. So that would add, I think, a little bit more interesting, like a trait or complexity to the creature or to the thing.
Yeah,
especially if this is also the same thing that we're going to read about later in a later story that gets like. That has like seems to have shape-shifting abilities, but I guess we'll have to get into that when we get to short hoggers. So,
all right. Now my next actual thought here. As soon as he recovered his senses, the driver then noticed Walter Inkpen slumped over in his seat, a look of incredulous horror etched on his now ashen face. And then a little while later. Did he ever regain consciousness? Like, that just slapped me in the face. Like, I did not realize that Walter Inkpen had lost consciousness in the cab.
I could kind of see it like that. Like,
well, he was just laying there.
He just slumped over. Like, so, like he's like.
I thought he died.
He was like, and he did die, but it was like 3 days later. So, like, yeah, like it could have been a little bit more, I guess, straightforward of like slumped over, possibly in shock or something, as he had a look of
but still breathing or whatever.
Yeah.
Because
like again, like you see that in like movies and stories where it's like the character like is just standing there, like he like sees something horrific, he sees Cthulhu, and he just like has like a horrible face, like again like an incredulous expression of horror on his face, as he slumped over and like clearly in shock or just like unresponsive at all.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
And then my next actual thought here. Why sing praise for a now dying world swarming with dregs and degenerates? To which my thought is, has the Earth not been destroyed as it was earlier? I'm so confused.
I think
what it's talking about.
It's referencing the doomed Earth, but like it wasn't like obliterated, like white, like it wasn't like taken off the map. It's still there. It's just damaged beyond inhabitation, basically.
It's not Saints Row 4 where freaking aliens showed up and literally vaporized the planet. No.
It wasn't Death Starred. It was just fallouted, basically.
Yeah.
But it says destroyed the planet entirely.
That doesn't that can mean, I'll give it to you that it can mean the entire planet was wiped out, like completely gone, or it was destroyed entirely in that it across the entire planet's surface was entirely destroyed, i.e.
planet is ruined.
Yeah, the planet is blighted and ruined. Yeah. But yeah, I will give you that. Like when you say something like the planet was entirely destroyed, that usually means the planet's gone. Like
it's vaporized.
It's gone. It's just dust and echoes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And that's the end of my chapter 4.
Okay. So, Gamer, your actual thoughts on chapter 4.
Yep. Let's see. So this is Kess saying this, I guess. Although I was understandably wary of these dark fairies that were heavily reputed to be deathbringers and devourers of mortals, I still felt some comfort in knowing I wasn't alone. This is in regards to her actually speaking to Dr. Acker and all that.
Yeah.
She's not alone. She watched people come into the store to get shelter from the rain. You're not alone in there.
Yeah.
There's multiple people in the store with her.
I mean, maybe but it does seem like for some her and Dr. Ackern are alone in the how they're perceiving the world. Like the others,
or just they're off by themselves in this tiny little area, because she's hiding for some reason. Well, no, she was just reading a book over there, but over by herself doing that.
I think even socially, and emotionally and stuff, they are isolated. But I think
I don't know if it's going that deep.
No, I just mean I think it should clarify that that though in the story. I do kind of agree. It does need some clarification of again, this kind of harkens back to what you were saying about these people, the other people that are in the store, but they're basically they slink into the shadows until the end of the story. And then they appear again. But there should be something where it's clarified a little bit more that only Dr. Ackern and Kess are aware of the weird supernatural elements that are happening in the store, despite that there are other people among them, but they're not reacting or experiencing the same thing that they are.
Yeah. Again, though, I think this alone part might just be because she's off in this row of books that's away from everyone else, so she's reading by herself. That's the level of aloneness. But the way it's described, it sounds like she's in this place alone and she doesn't have a choice in the matter. Well, because she says, I felt some comfort in knowing I wasn't alone. If she needed that comfort, she could have just walked over to the other people, one of which she knew.
Well,
maybe.
She thought she knew, yeah. Again,
but either way.
Yeah, I think it could either be that they're physically alone in that they're not near any of the other people that are in the shop, or socially they're alone because they're not all these other people aren't experiencing the same thing they are. But
again, that isn't referenced. It doesn't say that those other people aren't or are witnessing this. So her reacting in that way of alone doesn't seem right. Or the closest I could see to it making sense is just physically alone.
Yeah, fair.
But yeah, either way, that's all I got for this chapter.
All right, on to chapter 5. Been where exactly? He asked. The Quinarth Rim area, I exclaimed impatiently. Just a mile from the Swanwick coast, to be exact. Lived there about a year, although it felt what seemed like 5 or 6 years. Ah, yes, Dr. Ackern nodded gravely. Time passes slowly in the parts closest to the Yggdrasil Wood epicenter. And a lot of very strange goings-on in that place. It's a wonder more people haven't gone missing. How many? I added, as I folded my arms. 9 to be exact, was his response, was his reply. All of them young people, ranging from tweens to 20-somethings. First ones to go missing were a trio of British evacuee children during the Halloween picnic at Virebell Rock in 1940, and the latest happened in 2011 when an 11-year-old Einsel girl from Branchell named Chrissa Beadle suddenly disappeared while picking mushrooms. Okay, so we're getting some connections here from at least from some of the previous stories, with Chrissa Beadle specifically. I had to keep in mind again while reading the story. Ellie Lambert was the Ellie Lambert story that we covered is an earlier version of the Short Hogger story that was covered in that we're going to cover in a few weeks. So for me, the continuity I kept kind of shifting until by the end of the story, and even up till now, where I finally realized that this is all still in the past. But for some reason, I kept thinking that this was is the timeline being shifted around in this new version of the story of the story that's being told? Is this all happening in the future of the Ellie Lambert story that we covered, or is this all still this is this is all in the past of the Ellie Lambert events? But also with this, we also get kind of an idea of where things are in this world a little bit. So this is clearly in the past because Kess is going to leave these events and stories and go back to Swanwick. to deal with whatever happens in that story. And I guess interesting thing here is so it's mentioned earlier that like she was in this was at this hotel. She was living in this hotel in Saphrasia, which I think is also where Asgard is. So, and that's near the Yggdrasil wood, which was referenced in the original like last day of October story that we covered. So, so we're getting a sense of we're getting connections between the different stories, and I'm kind of getting a layout of like the geography of the meta geography of this world. There's instances where I was kind of getting confused by the timeline or the continuity of time of where things settled in. But at least we got some sad. It's a little sad, but at least we got some closure about what happened to Chrysa Beetle. Especially my next quote, which is, she was the only one of the 9 to ever be found. Her body was little more than a dried husk when it was discovered on a bench at Willowdale Station 7 months later. Her remains were in such a deplorable state that the cause of death couldn't even be determined. And just like, well, I mean, it wasn't going to end happily with after what we saw in at the end of the last day of October, where she got like things got like put into her brain, and her mind and soul were completely gone. But just
super dead.
Yeah, poor girl. And then this one also kind of, again, like there's instances where like we get a fair amount of context to things, and then there's things that we don't get context to, like this. And just when I was really enjoying my stay in that idyllic place of bountiful natural splendor and pastoral harmony, someone broke the rules one day. Someone who thought I was one of her best friends forever. Sorry, one of her bestest friends forever and always. But I wasn't, because I completely hated her guts. And then it keeps going on. And it's like, okay, a little random, but this is your journal entry in your journal, so...
Yeah.
From an immersion point of view, like, we don't have to know who that was, but I kind of want to know. Like, I wouldn't mind some context to who this person was. Do they have any? Is this going to play into something later down the road? Maybe, like, are we going to get to know
previously that these characters do like to rant?
Yeah. Also, this
when they're talking amongst each other.
Also, I gotta say, is this also maybe a connection to something from the Curtisville stuff? Like, because like this person kind of sounds like Ellie Lambert, or even the other Lambert, like the older Lambert character that was referenced by the elven babysitter in one of the previous stories, where it's like they were a character that like latched on to another character who didn't care for them, but like they got really obsessive over them and like thought they were their friends and such. I don't know. Again, I was starting to like slip into the weeds maybe in the story a little bit with like certain things, but this particular like area section is just like, it just kind of references like it's like, oh, my stay was completely ruined by this person who thought they were my bestest friend forever, but I hated their guts. So anyway, moving on. Yeah.
It's flavor text.
Yeah. And as such, moving on to my next and last thing for chapter 5. I absolutely have no experience whatsoever in dealing with the occult, other than running for dear life and the use of protective barriers and talismans. If this guy thinks I should help him wrangle some nameless terror from who knows where without proper nullifying equipment, then he could hire someone else them. I'm leaving. So this is, again, like when Dr. Akron tries to like recruit Kess into helping him stop this thing, because like they both see this thing, or they both are aware of this thing. Again, it kind of ties into my idea that like they are the only ones in this bookshop that can actually see this thing, so they're the only ones that can do something about it, maybe. But now I'm.
I wish he said that though, because it's all assumptions.
I know, but that's all we have to go on.
I know, but she isn't going on the assumption, so why are we?
I don't know. Anyway, move to the actual point here is like, I'm also starting to wonder if this is where Kess gets her like really cool, like futuristic rifle. Assuming that plotline carries over from the Ellie Lambert story into the newer version of that story in Short Hoggers. Again, I tried to like focus on the story at hand and not like pull from like not try and draw connections or like try and like expand out to like some of the other stories that are connected. It was just really hard for me in this.
Well, they're all connected, so
I
like
know,
you
yeah.
should be thinking about them.
Yeah. So also, yeah, I'm getting this sort of also gave me the impression that like, so she hasn't moved to Swanwick yet. So this is still like in the past of that, and we're kind of we're working our way up to that point, I think. And so like this is if Escard is in Saphrasia, then she had to leave Saphrasia and go and flee into that perhaps. Because like that's mentioned in the Ellie Lambert story as well, is that she's a refugee from Saphrasia. And so also interesting thing because it also references that she has like she is on the run already, or like is running for dear life and using protective barriers and talismans. And we kind of got some of that again in an earlier story, the Ellie Lambert story, where it's referenced that like her cottage that she was staying in Swanwick had protective barriers at the doors to keep it safe. And at first I thought that was just a security system of the cottage she was staying at, but maybe it's something that she actually would put on herself, because it's referenced here now that she has some of those abilities, or she has some kind of magical warding ability, or at least able to like create some wardcraft.
Yeah.
So some things are trying again, like I'm like tying these into a story that is an earlier version of the story that we're going to be reading in a few weeks. And now I've gone cross-eyed. I think I might just be like personally like confusing myself over these stories. Over all the connections. I'm straight up that guy from It's Always Sunny who's like got like the cork board with all the things and like got it's like don't you see the connections here? But that's the end of my ramblings for chapter 5. Mikey, what do you got?
Well, the issue I have with chapter 5 ties into chapter 6.
Okay.
So I'm gonna wait until chapter 6.
All right. Gamer.
Okay. So when I got to this point, and like I was kind of thinking of it earlier, but like especially when I got here, I'm like, I have no idea why Kess sticks around during all this shit that's going on. Because like every minute she stays there, she's being scared by one thing or another. And now she's sitting down and hearing story after story from like a creepy like demon guy who she just met.
Yeah, who
yeah,
like a hiding place.
Yeah, there's like a million red flags, and she's ignoring all of them over and over again. If I was her, I would just leave the bookstore as soon as like this creepy guy just jump scared her out of nowhere, knows her freaking history and how she got there. I'm out. I'm leaving.
I was like,
I would rather
like,
get wet outside in the rain than stay in here and potentially get murdered by some creepy orange guy that smells weird and isn't actually there, but he's there. These like weird tall dog things. Like there's like multiple creepy things that are potentially killing her, even though she's explaining them off one way or another. But like she's staying in the worst place possible and yet staying there.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the torrential storm that's outside needs to be needs to be brought up a few more times to explain that like she is kind of trapped in a way in the store, because like they're all like they've all come into the store to wait out the storm, right? So I think the storm needs to be like pressed on. It's like, well, I'm just gonna leave. Fuck, I really don't want to go out into that storm because it's a long way to get back to where I'm living right now, and I'm just gonna get wet and possibly even get hit by like lightning or something.
Yeah, if it was like constant lightning or like hailing really hard,
and like
or something.
The story does kind of reference occasionally. It does like reference like the storms like pattering on the roof.
And the thunder scaring her and stuff, but it's not.
Lightning,
it's not an unhuman or not inhuman, an unrealistic amount of like rain that like in this. Me as a normal human that just sees human things.
Yeah.
If I'm witnessing all this creepy shit, I'm just gonna go out there and I don't care if my hair gets wet. Like, It's not a big deal.
See, I'm honestly not sure how I would. I think I might actually still stay in the store in the.
Well, you also want to die immersed in creepypasta.
Wow, sir, I feel seen.
I have that on recording.
Yeah, that's true. It's on recording.
Yeah.
But like again, like it depends on the weather. Like if it's. I don't know. Like I might go in the rain if this shit was happening, but like I might also like at the very least stay close to the door. Like don't lose line of sight with the door.
I guess, yeah.
Just like
Potentially getting gutted by multiple supernatural creatures or having to dry my clothes off.
Well, again, like she's still not fully aware, like certain, like she's in much danger. Well, she knows she's in danger of some kind, but she's not sure how immediate it is. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it is sort of. I do agree that I think like the storm should be treated more of like an isolating threat. Like that's what's keeping her here, rather than just like the pitter of rain and the lightning strikes flashing. Like I think that maybe there should be more of a focus of like, man, the weather's like really bad out there. Like I don't know how I'm gonna get home unless it gives up, kind of thing. But
yeah, that's all I got.
Okay, then on to chapter 6. We already brought up the kobold thing, so I'm gonna leave that alone. Kobold invisibility. Kobold. But there is another fairy creature that's referenced that I was not aware of. So here's the quote. Oh, maybe a pixie, a pillywiggin, or even a green finch, the third girl guessed. So pillywiggins, because I know what pixies are and I know what a green finch is. It's a type of bird. But pillywiggins, as I discovered, are tiny English or Irish fairies who care for and protect flora.
Well,
I'm learning about fairy folklore. Yay!
Mm-hmm.
Legitimate.
We're learning.
Yay.
We're learning.
Yeah, we're learning. Oh. And then my last quote and comment for the story. While the lively discussion continued, I could only stare in shock, unable to believe that this unholy relic would be finally coming back to me. As I watched the thing slowly illuminate the room with a golden green brilliance, which shimmered like moonlight over a tropical bay, I had the dreadful feeling that my troubles were only just beginning. And those are the last words of the story. All right, I guess we're getting a cliffhanger, and I hope the next story starts off immediately after this.
Yeah.
Honestly, I kind of feel like there should. It kind of just ends.
Yeah, it doesn't end. It stops.
Yeah, it just kind of stops. And like, I feel like there should have been like an extra chapter or something like that. But it's clear,
which is insane. Because like it's like, not to throw shade at the story, it's a long story.
But
like
it talks to about like 21 pages roughly if you put it in Google Docs and such. So
yeah, but like with that long of a story, and it still like just stops instead of it has the time to have a proper ending, but it doesn't. It just stops.
Yeah,
which shocked me.
Yeah. And I did jump ahead to the next one, and it does say this story happens immediately, like follows immediately after the events of the previous story. So like this one. So,
okay, that's good.
So it is like, it's sort of, to me, kind of reminded me of like the Reddit No Sleep stories that are all like a series with like, so this is part 1, the next one's part 2, the next one's part 3, and like they are going to happen basically immediately or very shortly after the events of the previous part, kind of thing. But because
what probably happened is like the writing was going on. It's like, oh wow, this is long. I'm gonna do a part 2 and just stop it here. Just keep her going.
Yeah, exactly. Or like they had like they again, like it's not unheard of to have like these kind of cliffhanger endings in a regular in like a non-Reddit No Sleep or creepypasta kind of story. It's just kind of like, all right, I guess we're getting a cliffhanger. Like I was like expecting there to be a conclusion. It's like, nope, we just found this. We get this revelation of this item that's from her past that like jumped down her throat. And to be continued.
Yep.
Yeah.
Came right out of Left Town, went right down the throat.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is actually one of the reasons why I'm only giving this a partial recommendation, honestly, is just like it just kind of ends. And like with a cliffhanger, and it's like I wasn't really I wasn't excited about it.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. So but yeah, that's my comment on the end of chapter 6 and the story at whole. So Mikey, D stands for evil.
Yeah. So, as Gamer pointed out, Chapter 6, the story comes out of Left Town. Like, the end of Chapter 5, we get her saying, like, no, I'm not dealing with this, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And the next chapter would be, in my mind, you're not going to go to the monster? Well, the monster's coming to you.
Well, yeah, and I think that's what this is sort of trying to set up,
But
it's not just straight up giving us the monster. It's giving us something that's like tied to what the monster is and such.
yeah,
Maybe.
but
Yeah.
maybe if there was some mention of a green moth or even this artifact that she knew about earlier in the story, I would give it a pass. But the entire chapter 6 comes in a left town and then leaves on a cliffhanger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which to me was very unsatisfying for the end of the story.
Agreed. Which is a shame because the story was kind of going well until this point.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of cuts out.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I feel like you could almost have it end at chapter 5, like I'm leaving, and then
Honestly,
it ends.
Honestly, yes, or like maybe modify the ending a little bit, but yeah, basically like that could have been the ending for that, and then have this bit happen in the next story when like she's about to leave, and then like shit happens, and then that opens up the avenue for the next story. It's like, all right, well, you're not getting out of this that easily, Kess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was setting this way. Unfortunately, it is trying to set itself up for the next story, but it also just leaves us an unsatisfying ending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my actual thought on chapter 6.
Okay. Gamer?
Yeah. I'm basically, I'm just gonna say Ditto
Okay.
is my favorite Pokemon.
I mean,
And also,
or they are pretty
unrelated, but yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point that out.
This isn't a Bookstore gamer. Like,
It's not. You're right. But
that
yeah,
isn't
again,
Meowth that she's been hanging out with.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. But yeah, throughout the story, there were a couple of story beats earlier that would have had punchier endings than this. One of which, Mikey brought up, but like just dropping it here just left me with more questions. I already had questions going through it that were getting answered as we were reading, but this just left a question out of left town and didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
But at least I'm glad that there's a continuation after it, so this will get answered.
Hopefully. But yeah,
Yeah.
like the events from what it sounded like based on the little like blurb that's like before the story starts, like it does say like this story is a direct sequel to the previous one. So
Yeah.
But that's all you got for chapter 2 or chapter 6?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Then I suppose we'll move on to final thoughts. So yeah, this is why I'm repeat, like I'm partially recommending this one for now. Mostly because it just ends with a cliffhanger that is clearly going to go into the next story, which reading this story for it and like getting that part, it was really unsatisfying of an ending for the story, because it was like, for me, I was really enjoying the build up and like the character development and like the setting, and so like the setup of the environment that we're dealing with, and like this sort of we're setting down a groundwork, and then it just kind of ends with this cliffhanger ending, and it just left a bad taste in my mouth. And it's like, could have
Tasted just like that moth.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Yeah. Like I loved the characters. I liked the setup in the bookshop and this like horror thing, and then this quirky, creepy doctor who like, hey, you and I are the only ones who seem to be able to see this thing. We should try and stop it or deal with it.
Was that actually said?
I don't know if it's said, but to me now I'm kind of inferring that from the subtext. You gotta read between the lines, man. Maybe, I don't know.
There's so much stuff that's on the lines already.
Yeah, but you gotta read between them too. Deep. Metaphor. Kinda. But yeah, so the like it was going really well for me, and then this ending just sort of like killed my mood a little bit.
Mm.
Like I know, like again, I'm expecting the next one will be a direct sequel. Better fucking be a direct sequel. I mean, like we kind of got like that, like because like the last day of October, the first story we covered in this series, we eventually got like the conclusion to what happened at the end of that story in this one. So it is kind of following a linear path, at least based off the first two stories. So, yeah, it's just it just ended too shortly for my taste, or like too abruptly. And like they could have been, I think, maybe handled a little bit better that ending. But otherwise, like I enjoyed everything else around the story. So, though a little bit the continuity of like some of the outlying things I did have beef with the story. I'm not sure if is not just a me problem, because like again I was reading this also looking for connections of previous stories, so like that might be on me. But otherwise, like I did enjoy the story regardless of those things until the ending, and it's like now I have to, like I want to find out what happened. Like you can't just leave me on that ending. So
yeah.
But that is my recommendations and final thoughts. Mikey.
Yeah, so there's all this build up, an ominous storm, a sighting of a dead pop star, like all these different things, and there's a thing which is clearly an entity of some kind in the tea shop.
Yeah.
Right. He just described it as that thing.
Well, yeah, and
not saying it's a thing that she's already referenced, just a thing.
Yeah, that thing.
Yeah.
I think but it does hint at that thing is also the thing that's behind a bunch of disappearances, i.e. the one that we saw in the last story, and this famous singer kind of thing. And so like that's why like they saw something different about it, so like it is sort of a thing because it doesn't have a set form kind of thing. But that again, it's more of on a more subtle level. But
so we get all this build up and mystery, and then a moth shows up and destroys it all. Like for me, it came out of Left Town, and like the moth turns into a monocle or a poker chip or whatever that glows. And it's seemingly completely unconnected to the rest of the story. And then we get basically a to be continued.
Yeah.
Like that's so unsatisfying.
Yeah.
When we don't get to see the monster do anything.
Yeah, this is like this story. It really feels like this was all setting groundwork for what's going to happen in the next story, when that next story should have just been more chapters in this story.
Yeah, so as it stands on its own, I cannot recommend it because that moth was just too jarring. Now, if it ties in well to the next story and it makes sense for there to be a moth in this story, I might bump it later, but as it is, as standalone, I can't recommend it.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, gamer?
Yeah. Again, ditto. Good Pokemon.
Not a Pokepasta. Gotta repeat that.
It's a thing. It could be anything it wants to, just like the weird creature that we don't know what it is here. So what's weird about this story is it seems like the main through line about the story is the monster that causes the disappearances, or even if it is a monster that causes disappearances, she could have faked her own death basically to live a quiet life, because that's another thing he brings up as an option, whether that was actually her disappearing back then. but it seems like that's the main plot of this story.
Yeah.
But there's so much other stuff going on before and after that like the main plot is getting buried in all these other subplots that don't go anywhere. Like theoretically the moth coin is going to go somewhere because it really seems like it will
be like connected to this because like otherwise what the fuck was the point of that? But like I would imagine that's why like Kess is involved. Like she's involved more than like that's why like Dr. Ackern probably chose hers because like he knows more about her than we're given in this story. Maybe
clearly he was stalking her earlier.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I'll call her Fiona.
We'll call her Fiona, and then it cuts to like 2-3 chapters later. It's like from Kess's journal, and it's clearly like Fiona, like what Fiona experienced earlier. It's like so. I guess Fiona in quotes is actually just Kess.
Yeah,
like
very strange.
Way to bury that lead a little bit. It's like maybe you should just call her Kess. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of stuff that I feel needs to be explained that isn't explained. Which is weird because of the like duration of the story. It's a big story, and there's a lot of stuff that doesn't get explained because it's getting buried by all these other plots that show up and go nowhere. Like there's so many creepy things happening in this bookstore, and that's fine and all that, but all of them go nowhere.
Oh my God, I just realized. So like yeah, because we're like the first like jump scare she really gets is like those shadow hounds, right? But then it turns out those are actually just like a couple of like some fuka or something like that. Like just like some townspeople having some Halloween pranks. It's like, my God, that's actually a fake out jump scare. I just realized.
Yeah.
Also,
and that's what she assumes because that wasn't confirmed.
That's also
she's just making. Yeah. She's just trying to explain out one way or another so she can not freak out.
Yeah. Because
yes, it could be that, but it could also actually be some weird demon thing that we don't know about. I don't know.
Yeah.
So like, there's so many questions being raised, and like, it seems like the story doesn't really know what the main point of the story is, aside from, I guess, setting up the main plot of the next part. I guess.
Yeah, like I think the story does have a clear idea of what it wants to do. Like, but like as it's meandering through, it's throwing all these extra world like kind of setup stuff. And like I'm glad it does have a lot of that world setup stuff. But like there is some stuff that's mentioned in here that it just like kind of makes it meander a little bit, or makes it seem like it muddies the water a bit.
Yeah.
Because I do believe that there was a strong like kind of central idea for like the plot. It's just getting through that you had to like meander through this like mire of other things that may have muddied your vision of what was going on.
Yeah. But yeah, long read, has fun, and so like it's a fun setting with some like spunky characters or whatever. Like when they all show up at the end, all the different types of characters talking, that's when the story actually kind of took off.
Yeah.
Like chapter 5 or 6 that was.
Yeah.
I think 6 actually. But yeah.
Yeah, chapters. Yeah, again, like just to harken back, I really feel like there should have been something in the middle of the story. We should have gotten more of an explanation, or more of a more description of like they aren't physically alone in this store, but no one else seems to be acknowledging the weirdness except for Ackern and Kess. Like I think that needs to be kind of maybe like brought up a little bit more to the spotlight rather than leaving it till the very end of the story. And then like, oh, there's suddenly all these characters that are in the store that, well, they were in the store, but they just kind of like vanished for a bit. And now they're back.
Because like,
yeah,
at the end of the day, all the creepiness, aside from the green coin situation, was either in her head or a story being told by a stranger.
Yeah.
So either I was unsure of the creepiness the whole time, whether it was actually happening to her directly or not, or I knew the creepiness wasn't directly happening because it's a story being told to her by some demon, like vampire dude, whatever he is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the creepiness wasn't there in the forefront for me because of all the layers of protection between me and the creepiness, and technically between her and the creepiness, even when it's just the stories being told to her.
Although being told a bunch of really creepy stories from somebody you just met is not a good scene. Like, not a good situation to be in.
Well, no, but that's what I said earlier too.
Yeah.
The creepiest thing in this is Dr. Ackard.
Yeah, because like,
he's the creepiest thing in this.
Mademoiselle. It's like,
Because he shows up out of nowhere, he gives a weird explanation of why he's there.
How he and
what
happens to know her name. Like,
yeah. Like, the creepiest thing is the fact that the first 3 chapters are from his log. That's the creepiest thing.
As he is observing Kess, it seems. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. Like, he is also like kind of creepy in that regard. Like, he is like, oh, he's quirky. He's also really creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so you're still not going to recommend this one, or?
For the time being, I'm not going to recommend it just because it meanders around a lot, as you said.
Yeah. There's
a lot of like red herrings and such. It's hard to get a beat on what the story's trying to portray. But again, once this whole story gets completed with the next part, I'll see if my recommendation changes overall.
Okay. So I guess that'll do it for tonight. 2 non-recommendations and 1 partial recommendation. Again, pending the rest of the stories that are connected to this one, like pending the sequel.
Yeah.
And that'll do it for tonight. So if you like what you heard, or if you didn't, leave us a comment in the comment section below where this gets posted. We're all on Twitter, kind of. Mikey is at the same.
I'm not.
The Gamer in Yellow still has an account named
there you go.
known as the Gamer in Yellow, but without that W at the end because his name is too goddamn long.
Yeah.
And I'm at Review Cultist. I'm also on Blue Sky as Review Cultist, so you can send me stuff there. You can also send us emails at aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's ALDENTERIGAMORTIS@gmail.com, where you can also leave us suggestions for other creepypastas, SCPs, and spooky things. You creep it, we'll peep it. Yeah! And if you'd like to help support our show financially, you can go to Patreon, select the backer tier you'd like to support us at. We have $2 and $5 tiers with special episodes, early access, and extra content. To all our patrons, thank you immensely. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay, and as always, we very much appreciate that. And to our listeners and the authors of these stories, thank you immensely, because without your listenership, it'd be like screaming to the void. And without your authorship, without these stories that you post online and share with the greater internet spaces, we really wouldn't have much of a show because we have nothing to talk about. So, thank you. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, the East Ends Reval.
And I'm the Gamer in Yellow.
And this has been Al Dente Rigamortis. Sleep well. Before we end this episode, this is going to get posted on the end of the episode, like in the outro kind of bit thing. We didn't realize until the very end that there was a whole art gallery that Pratt 99 posted underneath the story that has all the images that were in the story, like the 4 of them. But then there's like another 20 images, another 20 pieces of art like that she has made of scenes from the story that don't need to go into the story, but like she left in case you wanted to like see like some of these images as she saw them in her head. I'm guessing, and like, goddamn,
mind-boggling. All the additional work that went into this.
There's 20. There's 5 images. 5 images from the actual story, and then it's like 20 more.
Yeah. Which is awesome. Like when you're flipping through them, it's basically like rereading the story. Like
Yeah,
you
it
can see
really
like
is.
yeah, it's like shot for shot.
My one little like critique, I'd say, I do like the ones that we have in the actual like story. I felt really brought out the gloominess of the rainy, like stormy, like town that she is in. Whereas like all these other images are like really colorful and like
Yeah.
amazing, but they kind of like pull away from the dreariness that I got from the atmosphere of the town.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that's necessarily a bad thing. I'm glad that they're like in this like little art gallery below the story that you can check out. But I'm also kind of glad that some of these colorful ones aren't actually in the story itself, because I feel like they might have like ruined my perception of like the kind of gloominess.
Yeah.
We also actually get to see
I'm just
what
sad
this
that
looks
we
like.
didn't even. I'm just sad that we didn't even get to see this in the first place, because like all
Yeah.
of us missed it. Because it's just kind of a throwaway thing there, and the first picture there is the first picture of the story. So I kind of assumed, okay, there's just you can look at all the pictures again that were in the story, not realizing that there weren't 27 pictures in this story.
Yeah, exactly. And like again, some of them are like they're all really good.
Yeah.
But like some of them are just like amazing. Amazing. Like, and we actually get to see some of the other characters in the town. Like we get to see like these sort of like more artsy versions of like these entities that live in this town.
Mm-hmm.
And to maintain the gloominess, I would stick to the black and white pictures.
Yes, absolutely. Like especially if it was in the story like that, I think that captures that element much better. We also get to actually see like parts where like she sees the various people coming into the store, including that like that rain-coated like apparition.
And also the woman that reminded her of someone else as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like a nice mix of like some of it's colored, some of it's black and white. So it's like, yeah, it all really works really well. And again, we finally get to see what Kess actually kind of looks like. Like we actually get to see kind of like how a Gurdon kind of looks like. They are much more
like the back of her head previously.
yeah, and with the descriptions that we had gotten of like this kind of like feline human mix, like we actually now get kind of more of the proportions of the feline human mix. Like she is more human looking, but she's got like cat eyes kind of, and she's like kind of got that nose bit, like that little like cat nose thing at the end at the tip of her nose.
Yes.
Her ears are pointed rather than like full on cat ears, but she's got like pale to white hair. Her skin's a lot darker than I thought. Like I was expecting more of like an orangey kind of color, but it's actually like more like a brown, like a dark brown.
I don't think it was directly described the color of her skin. So
I always thought it was like an orange fur, like kind of it was like orange fur, like kind of fuzz.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't tell if it was like furry cat person or neko cat person.
Yeah,
but no, it's completely unique.
Even in some cases, like with cat people, like they have like it's not that they have orange skin or they have like a darker skin. They have like almost like a fur fuzz on their skin that like in illustrations it's hard to tell like until like that fur kind of like goes on end.
It's like peach fuzz everywhere.
Yeah, or it's just so like matted down that it's like it almost blends in, especially when it's an illustration or a cartoon.
Yeah.
Also, we have the kobold kids at the very end. So we actually they're actually not like D&D kobolds. They're just like people.
No, they're kobolds.
Kobolds, the kobold kids.
Mhm.
Also, again, like the kobold kids does kind of just sound like some kind of like Western gang. It's like, oh god, it's the kobold kids.
Yeah, it really does.
I think that just happens whenever you have like the something kid or like the something kids because of the one famous Western like bandit. What the hell was his name? You know that famous
One
character.
famous?
Yeah, I know. I knew.
There's so many famous Western bandits.
No, like the
Billy the Kid.
Yeah, or yeah, the Billy the Kid, or like the I think I'm thinking of like Shanghai Noon, the movie with like Jackie Chan and
Historically accurate.
which has like the Shanghai Kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, again, just wanted to like attach this to the end of our episode because we all missed it. And I just wanted to like I got really no big critiques on them. Like they're all really good images. The only thing is like I'm glad that the black and white ones were associated with the actual story. The ones that were integrated into the story, because like I feel like that's the mood that you get from reading the story is this kind of gloomy gloom haven kind of setting.
Mm.
But yeah, so boys, any other comments?
I think that just about covers it.
Okay, cool. All right. Then that's it for our art critique. At the end of this episode. So good night.